I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move on to agenda approval. Any changes or additions to the agenda from the board? I don't see any lights, so I'll take a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion we approve that agenda.
Second.
Trustee Eigel moved to approve the agenda as written. Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton seconded. We can vote. Agenda approved as written. The next section is the public comment. This is for items not on the agenda. Public comment needs to be within 3 minutes. Public comment on quasi-judicial items must be reserved for the appropriate public hearing. And this is not a question and answer session, just a one-way comment. Does any member of the public request to speak on a non-agenda item? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And please state your name.
I shall. My name is Terry Rustin. I live at 555B Devon Drive in Estes Park. I'm speaking today about the condition of the multi-use trail along the east side of Highway 7. This trail is scheduled for reconstruction starting later this year. The project is scheduled to take 10 years and is to start in this section from Graves to Community, a distance of 0.3 miles. Last week, I rode my bicycle on that trail from Peakview to Community on my way to the community center. It was a bumpy and dangerous ride, despite keeping to the speed limit. There were many places where the asphalt is buckled, leaving gaps where vegetation is growing. In places, the asphalt is broken, leaving potholes. The trail was once level, but in many places, the earth beneath the trail has shifted, and the surface now slopes downward. For my return ride, I chose to ride on Highway 7, which is a much smoother surface. However, it is dangerous in its own way. I had to fight both the wind and the Bernoulli effect of swiftly passing vehicles. The next day, I returned to the intersection of Highway 7 and Community to take some photographs, which you have before you. These 4 pictures, which the town clerk has provided, were all taken within 20 feet of that intersection. This is far from the worst area on the trail. If the reconstruction goes according to plan, it'll be years before these damaged areas get repaired. Riding a bicycle on the path is dangerous for the bike rider and potentially so for dog walkers and hikers if a bicyclist swerves, loses control, or takes a tumble. And riding on Highway 7 poses risk for both motorists and cyclists. It has also been a danger for runners. I was a medical volunteer for the marathon 2 days ago. 2 runners tripped and fell on the uneven surface, sustaining significant abrasions. Therefore, I request that some consideration be given to making repairs to the asphalt in the worst sections of the trail in advance of the extensive reconstruction that is planned. Thank you.
Thank you. For items not on the agenda. All right.
My name is Laura Rustin, 555B Devon Drive. I'm asking a rhetorical question because I know you cannot answer, but I wish I and many other people I talk to have a better understanding as to why the main topic at the study session that just occurred, why that section of the development code related to planning and zoning has sort of been pulled out for intensive review and study and comments at the same time that a very expensive rewrite of the development code is going on. I have had the pleasure of reading several of the major chapters of the rewrite, and it's chock full of statistics and definitions and plans and questions that are just happening without much public attention, but this particular thing about changes of condition in proximity and 500 feet and 300 and 1125, it's been pulled out separately, and I don't really understand why. And I know perhaps some of you don't understand why, but in any case, I'm not going to find out not why now, but it's confusing to many people that this one topic it's a separate agenda item, it's a conversation that everybody's having. It's been 2 study sessions, now a third, then it will go through, if I understand correctly, Planning Commission, and then come back to you. At the exact same time, one has to assume that the people who have been hired to study and rewrite the development code are doing the same thing. I don't understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment, items not on the agenda?
Mayor, could we pause for one moment? I don't think we're on air.
Oh, we lost our transmission feed.
Thank you.
Uno momento. And we are back.
Thank you. I'm John Guffey. I live at 561 Chapin Lane. And I just wanted to share some commendation to the board for their work in the study session and say that a lot of thoughtful speech was shared. And at sometimes it's impossible to hear everyone. I would like to hear everything you say. And I love the fact that what you say is important and it deserves to be heard at the back of the room. I also want to say that I went to the school board meeting yesterday and saw Ruby Bodie receive her gracious departure gifts and recommendations from the board, the school board. And one picture that she received was of the Estes Park landscape in the early days, a large matted photo that's in the lobby here of this center. And this house used to be the school. And it was noted at that meeting. And I think it's a wonderful reality that the town's house is near here too. And the center of the community is held by this space and by your work. And I acknowledge that, and I feel like it's very valuable and important. And I also want to reiterate the value of having the police department in this building and the fact that they're scurrying to build another structure somewhere else for reasons that may be resolvable or worthy. I think it should be considered a move away from community in its truth, and not recommended in a sense, because of the purpose of the police department isn't to drive cars. I think the cars should be maybe shifted somehow. They are a problem. But the officers in their space, if a building needs to be expanded to allow them to function in a way that's responsible and acceptable, that could be accomplished at a far greater, lesser cost than building a new structure. I also met the new superintendent of schools, David Grubbs, and I see him as a good addition to our community. Unfortunately, he'll be living in Loveland.
30 seconds.
And that's unfortunate for leaders in our community to live beyond. Maybe we can consider how to accommodate that essential function. Something I would like to bring up in my last 10 seconds is the importance of the Dark Sky Initiative. I hope that comes up on the agenda in the town here, but I'm certainly going to follow that. And it was mentioned the ombudsman role came up today in the study session. I think that is another position that could be of great service in the community.
Thank you. Public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on to town board comments and liaison reports. Trustee Eshelman.
Have no report for the Board of Appeals tonight, which is always good. I will mention that was able to take a tour of the water treatment plants this week. That's always a good thing. I think multiple of us did that, and if you ever get the opportunity to do that, I suggest it. And then, you know, the utility guy here, I you know, got to geek out on utilities, but Upper Thompson is also having an open house Monday from 3:30 to 5:30 in kind of preparation for their upcoming wastewater treatment facility discussions and what they do. So if you can attend that, I encourage that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brown.
Believe it or not, Mayor, I have very little to say tonight. An hour later, I'll be still talking. No. I am liaison to the Arts District Council, and they have their Friends of Folk going on right now. So if you get terribly bored in this meeting, go out to Performance Park. They're playing right now. I caught them earlier this afternoon, but it's a great thing. And it raises also subject that came up as we were talking about economic development for the town. And we were talking about some public art issues, about one of the prospects that we are considering looking into further is a program for facade improvements for businesses, and ties real well together with one of the Art District initiatives, which relates to murals. And you'll note, you know, we've had two very recent murals beautifying the community, and I think we'll have more of those coming up. So that's something to just keep an eye out and think about as we go forward about public art and also murals in particularly the downtown area.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton.
The Visit Estes Park Board had their annual board retreat last Thursday up at Twin Owls. It was an all-day event, so Mayor Hall and I were there, along with the rest of the board and several community members who participated as well. And it began, I'm just going to cover a couple of brief items. I would be up here for a long time if I talked about everything that we covered, and we have a long agenda tonight. But I did want to mention that the board started with a review and discussion about good board governance, which I think is important for every board to do on a regular basis. It's always helpful. But then we spent most of our time discussing destination stewardship, which is defined as the continuous pursuit of a net positive tourism ecosystem that exists in alignment with shared community values. So I'm sure you can imagine there's a lot of fodder that goes into that kind of conversation. And Visit Estes Park started a tourism master plan process over the past couple of years. And so a lot of the information that was gleaned from that beginning process, a lot of community outreach was brought into this conversation and really trying to define how we can maintain the spirit and culture of our community while also maintaining the health of our tourism ecosystem. So great conversation. The entire thing was recorded if you feel like watching it. I'm also happy to share additional notes and comments at a different, another time. But a couple of other things I wanted to mention during the business meeting portion of the retreat, because we did have our monthly meeting as well. We saw a sneak peek of new brand assets for Visit Estes Park, which includes a new logo. We reviewed the monthly financial statements, which we always do, and interestingly, lodging tax is up year over year, 12% through April. We also had an audit report from Haney. If you pay really close attention to the audit process, Visit Estes Park is part of the town audit package. So Haney does the town's audit as well, and so they're a great firm. They do a fabulous job, very thorough, and Visit Estes Park was issued a clean audit for 2025. And then we also discussed a new event funding process. At what level does event sponsorship from Visit Estes Park trigger a board discussion, where the CEO's signing parameters lie, that kind of thing. Final note for Visit Estes Park is they're hosting an accessibility showcase with Wheel the World on July 8th, the morning of July 8th at the YMCA. Public is welcome to attend that. I believe that event is mentioned in Mayor Hall's column this week, so you can get some more good info about that. But encourage folks, if you're interested in tourism, accessibility and tourism, it's a great opportunity to learn more. And then I'm also the representative for CAST, the Colorado Association of Ski Towns. They just shared sales tax numbers for 2025 for member communities. Our own staff member, Laura Garcia, compiles these as our contribution as part of CAST. So it's really interesting to see where the year ended for a lot of these ski communities and mountain resort communities. So there's no surprise that for actual ski towns, you're seeing a lot of impacts from weather and snow on their ski season, anywhere from 4 to 6% to 16 to 18% down. But Trustee Eichel and I were talking before the meeting about how sales tax is not the only economic indicator of success or disadvantages. So it'll be interesting to see how 2026 fares, and it's just good data to look at. So I have asked the town clerk's office just recently to share that with the full board, and that should be also on the public forum if people are interested in diving in. And that's my report for tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Lancaster.
A couple things. I attended the EPHA, the Estes Park Housing Authority Board meeting on the 10th, right after our last meeting. I too want to say we went on a great tour of the water treatment plants last Wednesday, and I want to thank the staff for taking the time and showing us around. It was great. Did a great job with that. Very interesting. Have a trustee talk coming up this Thursday at 5:30 in this room with Trustee Eshelman. So please come on out and talk with us about anything. And I also want to remind the board, and I'll probably send an email later, but we have a tradition here that's been good for years, is that during the meeting, during the rodeo, we wear our Western attire at the meeting and show our support for the rooftop rodeo. So dig out your cowboy boots and your hat, have them for the next meeting, and we'll show our support for the rooftop rodeo, and everybody else get out there and get your tickets for the rodeo.
Thank you, Trustee Eichel.
Mayor, I have no report. I also have no cowboy hat, so I'll sort that out.
You gotta go shopping.
Thank you, Trustee Mears.
But do you have boots? That's important.
She's got a pink one you could borrow,
I
Trustee
do,
Eichel.
yeah.
So.
Just in terms of reports, Estes Park Sister City Association met. We were talking about policies for the homestays for the students. We're considering an adult trip to Costa Rica this year and ideas for the annual party, which will be September 9th or 11th. Auxiliary police, I was unable to attend the meeting. However, I would love to acknowledge all the wonderful work that the auxiliary police team is doing with the marathon, Friends of Folk, the 4th of July, the rodeo patrol, and the parade. That's it.
Thank you. A couple items that I wanted to mention. I think at the observatory is that this weekend, June 27th, noon to 5, Bob Levitt has the amateur radio group out there, and I think that's open to anyone, so that could be all kind of fun. For those who weren't here at the study session, I'll just make a quick note. We discussed at the end of our study session having additional discussion related to the processes and oversight relating to the Estes Park Housing Authority Board. As you recall, or those of you who were at that session, we had a hour-and-a-half long study session, joint study session with the Housing Authority, and I think that nicely kind of opened the lid on the thing, and it really opened a channel of communication that we want to keep going and take a look at some aspects of that. So more to come on that. I think did it land on a study session as well? Yeah, and in the near future is what we're aiming for with that particular item. So just so you know, that topic is ongoing. It wasn't just a single point in time. One other comment, the fire chief, so cool. It was in the paper, so I can talk about it. I think Kevin Nunn is his name. He was one of the three finalists, and I met him during the open house. We've got a couple members of the board here and a couple of the staff members too. So congratulations on getting that. We hope this is a long and stable and wonderful chapter with the fire district, and looking forward to that. So good stuff. And Cleve Street, I want to make a comment on Cleve Street, kind of a general one. You know, the last couple of years have been challenging for folks who live down there. I mean, we had the construction project that went on. It was rugged. It was rugged for everybody. So I have both sympathy and empathy for them, because even going down there during the time of the construction, when Cleve Street was being rerouted and rebuilt and everything, was a tough time. And then we've got other construction happening down there with the chocolate factory and the carousel. We know there's a potential for the future parking lot and the Whimsidoodle piece, and we, the board and the town and the other folks involved, just have to be remarkably conscientious as we move into a project, if that project happens, or whatever shape that project takes, to make sure that we keep our compassion and empathy for those folks living in that area. They do live there in that apartment at the east end of Cleve Street, and it is something we have to keep close to our heart there, and think of them as the human beings that they are, and try to take the best care of them as we make any other transitions in that area. I guess that's almost it. Yes, Trustee or Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton mentioned that I have an article. It'll be in the different media, and it's about Visit Estes Park, and I think we touched on the other pieces and parts of it. But destination stewardship, hey, I have to always second that. That is so important. That's at the top of the food chain. As I always say, any changes that we make in this town, anything that we decide at the top of our decision factor, before we get to all the ordinances and regulations, is keeping the character, quality, and beauty of Estes. That's our number one assignment before we even get to all the regulations and the rules. Enough said. Okay, Town Administrator Mahalik.
Thank you, Mayor. Two items tonight. One, if anyone is here for the report and discussion item about the Estes Valley Child Care Facility Master Plan, we are going to ask the board to continue that to July 14th. We're having technical difficulties with getting the consultants on the line, so we will be bringing that back, if it pleases the board, to the 14th when we can get the consultants here. The only other item I have is there's a policy governance issue that I need to report to the board. We will cover it as action item number 1. That's the rooftop rodeo stock contractor. You recall earlier this year in March, I reported a non-compliance issue with policy 3.4.5 related to contract renewals and facilities that didn't follow the appropriate signatory authority. That is the same issue here. The rooftop rodeo stock contract is in excess of $100,000, should have come before this body. The renewal of that contract should have come before this body. It did not. As a reminder, that March report, there were 2 root causes for this error. Number 1 being education on purchasing and signatory authority for all supervisors or anyone that makes purchases. And number 2, a shortfall in our processes that has been rectified with the new Tyler Enterprise Resource Planning system. So I do not expect these to happen in the future. I would not be surprised if we ran into more of these issues as we proceed through this year and hit those renewals. So I will continue to bring these to the board's attention as we happen upon them. Happy to answer any questions you might have. I believe Director Hinkle will address it briefly in the presentation materials for that item.
All right, thanks. Does that mean item 2 under reports and discussion will not happen tonight?
Correct. Item 2, Estes Valley Child Care Facility Master Plan under reports and discussion will not take place.
Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll read the consent agenda into the record in full. 5 items on there. Number 1, expenditure approval list, bills. Number 2, town board meeting and study session minutes dated June 9th, 2026. Item 3, Resolution 7426. Take a deep breath. Authorization to execute Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment closed landfill remediation grant agreement amendment number 1 for stabilization work at the Power and Communication Elm Road Storage. I ran out of breath there. Facility located on the closed landfill in the amount of $332,051. Item 4, Resolution 7526, awarding the Mall Road Waterline Project to High Plains Excavation and Aggregate, LLP, in the amount of $1,786,950, and authorizing the Utilities Director to approve contingency spending up to $536,000 for a total project cost of $2,322,950, and this is budgeted. Item 5, Resolution 7626, change order for Fall River Trail final segment design with OTAC, Inc., $21,606, budgeted. Those are the 5 items. Does any member of the public or the town board request to have an item removed from the consent agenda?
I would request item 4 be removed.
Any others? Item 4 will be removed and considered separately. Do I have a motion for the modified consent agenda approval?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda with the removal of item 4.
I'll second.
Trustee Eshelman moved to approve the modified consent agenda with items 1, 2, 3, and 5 still on it. Item 4 removed. Trustee Mears seconded. We can vote. Consent agenda approved with that modification. Item 4, Resolution 7526. Trustee Brown.
I basically took it off because Chris made me take it off. Chris was gonna take it off, and no, I do have one question.
Sure.
It seems like the contingency amount is a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, it's
30%. That seems very high to me. Can you explain a little bit about that and what your experience is on other ones?
Sure. On this one, this is the one that has those really sensitive 3 areas that we talked about in one of the other meetings, the crossing of the siphon for the Bureau of Rec, the crossing of the waterway, the Big Thompson River, and the crossing of Highway 34. In addition, there's a high-pressure gas line in the area. So we're just building in that contingency in case there have to be changes in the field to address that. Typically, we run 20%. We just added 10 to cover those higher-risk elements and the unknowns associated with that.
Okay, thank you.
That was the same question I had. I thought it was an unusually high contingency there. I do want to state that that project is a real value to the water system in the community. That'll be a huge asset to get that done. I did notice that it looks like one of the subs is like a 65% part of the project. I'm assuming that's kind of being broke out between like the water crossing type stuff and versus a regular pipeline.
Yeah,
Just curious about that.
We have not met with them yet to say who's doing what, but they are running about 65% on the work that they're going to do. They submitted in their qualifications package, which you guys have, and that was a really big package, sorry, the quals for both the High Plains and for easy excavation. So they're, after review by our consultant, they were deemed as qualified, responsive, and responsible bidders. So however they choose to team that up, we'll work with them to make sure that, especially the river crossing, we did say whoever was doing that work as the primary had to have experience in that type of work. We don't want this to be their first shot at that.
I'm not questioning both are quality contractors, so I think that's good. My question is the high contingency.
Yeah.
I noticed there was rock blasting in there, which, yeah, that's good as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? And I will take a motion on item for Resolution 7526.
I move to approve Resolution 7526.
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton moved to approve 7526. I believe it was Trustee Mears who seconded, and we'll vote. And good to go. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item is a public hearing. The town of Estes will convene its liquor licensing authority for the public hearing on the application of Craig's Lodge, FBS LLC, DBA Historic Craig's Lodge for a new hotel and restaurant liquor license located at 300 Riverside Drive here in Estes Park. At this hearing, the liquor licensing authority shall consider the facts and evidence determined as a result of its investigation, as well as any other facts, the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood for the type of license for which application has been made, the desires of the adult inhabitants, the number, type, and availability of liquor outlets located in or near the neighborhood under consideration, and any other pertinent matters affecting the qualifications of the applicant for the conduct of the type of business proposed. The public hearing is open. Town clerk, you will present the information and application.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a concurrent review of this liquor license, which again, for those who haven't heard my spiel before, that is allowing the state to review this liquor license at the same time as the town is reviewing it and considering this liquor license. It assists the business in hopefully getting their license sooner. This location at Craig's Lodge has had a liquor license in the past. It has, in the past, licensed the View Restaurant. That did expire in 2025, and then now we have some new ownership of the location, and they're wishing to have that liquor license again for their hotel and restaurant. With that, the application was found complete and filed with our office on May 13th of this year. You set this public hearing at your June 9th meeting. The neighborhood boundaries for this establishment is 3.85 miles. All town hearing costs and fees have been collected. They are applying as a limited liability corporation, and the property is zoned A accommodation, which does allow this type of business to occur with the liquor license. Notice of the hearing was published on June 12th, and the premise was posted on June 10th. You will note that I stated that the responsible vendor training was unscheduled at the time of this memo. I believe their representation here tonight will confirm for you that they've established setting that training up and will be taking care of that shortly. With that, I'd take any questions that the board has.
I see none. The applicant can make their statement as desired. Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Augustine Lavario. As she mentioned, our responsible liquor training, I'm actually scheduled Tuesday, 10 a.m. for my 3-hour live seminar. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we get to questions, any other questions, are there any opponents who would like to present any evidence in opposition to this application? I see no movement. Therefore, you don't need a rebuttal. And in that case, other questions from the trustees?
Could you just tell us a little bit about your plans for the property and what you're...
You know, the property was purchased by a company called Vivame Hospitality. Vivame means revive the soul. They focus on historic properties and kind of reviving the soul of the property. I know they have big plans for, remodeling the property in the future, but, at this point, it's just kind of getting through the tough summer and, looking at their feasibility study and, getting that approved before we can kind of move on with any future renovations.
I see no other questions. Town clerk, have any other communications been received in regard to the application?
We did not receive any communications regarding this application.
All right. All evidence will be accepted as part of the record. Seeing no other questions, this public hearing is closed, and I'd take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 7826.
Did he say 78? Okay.
Second.
Trustee Eshelman moved to approve Resolution 7826. Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton seconded. We can vote. All right, good to go. Thank you. We have another public hearing, a separate public hearing. So the licensing authority will stay open. This one is for the Mountain Berry Bakery LLC DBA Kissing Moose Cafe and Saloon for a new hotel and restaurant liquor license located at 1701 North Lake Street in Estes Park. At this hearing, the Liquor Licensing Authority shall consider all the facts and evidence as previously stated. I will refer to that paragraph that's on the record so you know all of the rules that we're working with. This public hearing is open, and Town Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a concurrent review for a hotel and restaurant license. This is a restaurant or a location, again, that has been previously licensed. It was previously licensed under the name Rocky Mountain Hotel and Conference Center. And that last license expired in October of 2020. So it has been operating without a liquor license for a bit of time. They have now contracted with the Mountain Berry Bakery LLC to open that restaurant as well as bar located inside the hotel. So with that, the application was filed on May 14th. The meeting, again, was scheduled for tonight at your June 9th meeting. The neighborhood boundaries for this particular property is 5 miles, and we have collected all the fees and hearing costs. Again, they are applying as an LLC, and this property also is zoned accommodations, which allows this type of business to occur. Notice was published on June 12th, and the property was posted on June 10th. Again, it was noted that this LLC did not have their training scheduled on your material in your packet. However, they have gone ahead and gotten that scheduled as well, and they can speak to that a little bit more for you. And if there's no questions for me, the applicant is present.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Yeah, usually it's 3.8 miles.
This one
This
is,
is 5.
remember, it is at the farthest boundary of the town, so because this one's so close to one boundary, we gotta go all the way across the other side.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Good question.
Does the applicant have any statements to make? Oh, hit the green button. Yeah, there you go.
I'm Vicki Hahn, the owner of Mountain Berry Bakery. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself for a minute. I grew up in Colorado, in Loveland. I have always loved Estes Park, and it's been a part of my soul. And I've also always been in the food hospitality industry. So it's been a vision of mine to open a restaurant, bar, establishment up here. I, to that end, moved up around 8 years ago to become a permanent resident here and have worked at Tahar Mountain Lodge as the general manager in Twin Owls Steakhouse. And 3 years ago, I opened a food truck, Kissing Moose Cafe, and have expanded my business slightly every year. So unbeknownst to me, Vista Management and Rocky Mountain, I guess they're an investment group, bought Expedition Lodge, and they had a vision of bringing in a restaurant and bar. So together we've kind of put our two visions and are now hoping to open this establishment. They've worked very hard in the last 3 years to upgrade a lot of the things in that building. I think what they told me was it was in the lower 5 of the hotel industry, and now it's up in the upper 20. And they've done a lot of work for an event center and the outdoor deck. And so I think together we can do, make it into a very nice place that's very attractive to tourists. As far as my scheduling, I have a bar manager that is taking the class next Thursday. I'm taking the class tomorrow. We are both certified as tips previously, but the certification has changed, so that's why we had to do that.
Questions for the applicant? I'll ask the, yes.
Can I just make a quick comment? I had to look 2 or 3 times at you, Vicki, to recognize you. You look different out in front of the board than you do hard at work.
I know. Usually I'm in my chef costume and you don't see my hair. I do have hair. Nobody ever knows that.
You took all the words out of my mouth, yeah.
Actually, one of my employees said that. I came out one day without my chef hat on, and she's like, I did not know you had so much hair.
Who are you? Yeah, I wondered the same thing. She has a lot of hair. Okay, so I just wanted to add to the conversation that based on your attention, your focus on your business and taking it so personally, it gives me confidence that you will carry that through to this new venture. It's no one's talked you out of doing a restaurant or a bar.
They've tried, but it's kind of in my blood, I guess.
Well, I think that something new like this, part of it for me is looking at the background of the person who's applying, and your character in running your business says a lot for what I think that you can bring to this. So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that, and I wanted to know that you to know that I recognize that in the
Thank you very
application.
much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, good luck.
Is there any statement of opposition? We have a statement coming up, if you could step to the side.
Mention was made of the Tahara Mountain Lodge. I don't know what reference that is to the particular attempt to open a new facility, but the Tahara Mountain Lodge has hosted the First Peoples Festival, had dinners there, and hosted Native Indigenous people from around the country. Liquor is banned on many reservations, and I acknowledge the fact that it's not illegal here by the grace of God. There's nothing wrong with alcohol. I think we have an abundance of venues that serve liquor in this community, and I'd be interested in seeing a report on the number of arrests made of people under the influence of alcohol at every request to open a new establishment. I'm not necessarily saying there's a huge frailty in our community with the use of alcohol in public venues and driving home or driving around the community. But I think that is a significant concern that should be raised, so I'm just raising it. I didn't bring it up in the first one, but the 5-mile radius, I guess, touches me. And I think the community should be concerned in the presence of an abundance of alcohol being served in public where people must drink and drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? And you have an opportunity to make additional comments.
I guess my response to that would be that having been in this industry all of my life, yes, we all know that it is a fact that drinking alcohol is and can be a liability. However, I think that just the proactive part of anyone serving alcohol, having been trained to be very aware of overindulgence, is a great deterrent to that. And so I think there are plans in place that maybe doesn't prevent it 100%, but makes it as safe as can be.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, Town Clerk, any communications have been received in regard to this application?
No communication was received, Mayor.
All right. All evidence and comments made will be accepted as part of the record. And I will declare this public hearing closed, and I will accept a motion.
Mayor, I'd so move on Resolution 7926 for the approval of the license application.
I'll second.
Trustee Eigel moved to approve Resolution 7926. Trustee Eshelman seconded. Any other comments? We'll vote. All right, go forth. Our next item is also a public hearing on a different topic. It's a Planning Commission action item. And Kara Washam is here for us. Ordinance 1126, rezoning 440 Valley Road from RM multifamily residential to A1 accommodations, low intensity. Denise D. Borda, Brian Delaney, and Dana D. Burke, owners. At this hearing, the Board of Trustees shall consider the information presented during the public hearing from the town staff, from the applicant, public comment, and written comments received on the application. Has any trustee had any ex parte communications concerning this application, which are not part of the board packet? I see no affirmations. Any member of the board may ask questions at any stage of the public hearing, which may be responded to at that time. This public hearing is open. And Kara, you can give us the report.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. I have one item for you all today. It's the 440 Valley Road rezone. The purpose of this item is for Town Board to conduct a public hearing to consider an application for a proposed zoning map amendment from multifamily residential to accommodations low intensity, review the application for compliance with the Estes Park Development Code, and approve, deny, or continue the application. The subject property is approximately 1,500 feet southeast of the intersection of Elkhorn Avenue and Fall River Road. The subject property is zone RM and contains two structures, a detached single-family home used residentially and a small 3-unit lodge used for accommodations. The applicants seek a rezoning to A1 for regulatory alignment. The current triplex classification necessitates 3 separate vacation home licenses and workforce housing linkage fees. Reclassifying as A1 would better match their lodge model and would consolidate these fees with one accommodation license. Here's an aerial image of the existing site. You can see the single-family residence on the north side of the property and the existing 3-unit lodge toward the south corner. The applicants previously applied for the rezoning request in fall 2025 and went before the Planning Commission on January 20th. At the public hearing, Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to Town Board a recommendation of approval of the proposed zoning map amendment. However, Town Board denied the request on January 27th, citing non-compliance with Ordinance 1125. Following this denial, the applicants have resubmitted their rezoning request to satisfy the requirements of Ordinance 1125 and have obtained written approval from 74% of the record property owners within 500 feet of the subject property. The application went before Planning Commission last week, and they voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval. The applicants request to rezone the subject property from RM, multifamily residential, to A1, accommodations low intensity. The purpose of the request is for reclassification of the existing 3-unit accommodation structure from vacation home to resort lodge. In order to be reclassified, the property must be zoned to a district that allows the use. No future development is proposed with this application. Here's a sketch of the floor plan of the existing lodge called the Bunkhouse at Old Man Mountain. The subject property is currently developed as a detached single-family residence and a 3-unit lodge used as accommodations. If rezoned from RM to A1, the minimum land area is 1/4 acre per unit. If redeveloped, the maximum density allowed could support up to 3 units. Since the property currently has a combined total of 4 units, there is concern that rezoning may create a non-conforming lot based on area and dimension standards for A1. Section 6.8B of the Estes Park Development Code addresses this concern and states, accommodations use on a non-conforming lot as of February 1st, 2000 must be at least 15,000 square feet in A1. Staff interprets that existing accommodations use is permitted to continue as the lot is greater than 15,000 square feet. However, any future redevelopment would be limited to 3 total units. Here's the Estes Park zoning map showing the property zone as RM and surrounded by a mixture of zoning districts. Most of the properties on Valley Road are zoned residential. However, the adjacent properties abutting Elkhorn are zoned accommodations. Here's a future land use map from the 2022 Estes Forward Comp Plan. This map provides a guide for land use policies and decisions that direct growth according to character and intensity of use. The future land use map designates the property as suburban estate, which is intended for low to medium density, single-family residential development. The existing development, including the single-family home and accommodation units, is currently served by the town of Estes Park Water and Power. Estes Valley Fire Protection expressed no concerns or objection to the rezone application. Upper Thompson Sanitation District expressed no opposition to the rezone application, but stated that a change of use from residential to commercial warrants reassessment and will result in a rate change. Pursuant to Section 3.3D of the Estes Park Development Code, an application for a zoning map amendment shall be reviewed for compliance with relevant standards and criteria. Here are the 3 review criteria, which I will cover in the next few slides. The amendment is necessary to address changes in conditions in the areas affected. There has been minimal development on the subject property or in the surrounding vicinity in recent years. However, there has been a change in conditions in the area since the current zoning was established in 2000. In 2011, the property known as Fall River Lodge in Estes Park, directly across from the subject property, was rezoned from CO to A1. This rezoning was requested to convert a large residential building into a small resort lodge. This is a concept similar to what the owners of 440 Valley Road are proposing. The development plan, which the proposed amendment to this code will allow, is compatible and consistent with the policies and intent of the comprehensive plan and with existing growth and development patterns in the Estes Valley. Even though no new development is planned, the rezoning should still be reviewed for compatibility and consistency with the policies intent of the comp plan and with existing growth and development patterns in the Estes Valley. The suburban estate future land use designation permits single-family residential development, but is inconsistent with the proposed reclassification of the structure from vacation home to resort lodge. That being said, the proposed rezoning does align with the existing growth and development patterns of the Estes Valley, as the corridor is primarily composed of accommodations. The last review criteria considers whether the proposal can be served. The property is developed with existing residential and vacation home uses and is currently served by utilities. No comments in opposition to the rezoning were received, and no comments indicated an inability to provide adequate services and facilities from service or utility providers. Here are some advantages and disadvantages. Approval of the rezoning request would allow the property owners to reclassify their use from vacation home to resort lodge. Reclassification would allow the property owners to continue with their small lodge business operation and would ensure continued beneficial use of the property. Approval would result in a small loss to the Estes Park Workforce Housing Regulatory Linkage Fund. At the public hearing on June 16th, 2026, the Estes Park Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to Town Board a recommendation of approval of the proposed zoning map amendment on the basis of the review criteria in Section 3.3D of the Estes Park Development Code, if the board determines it is appropriate to approve per the purposes of Ordinance 1125. The general notice provisions outlined in Section 3.15 of the Estes Park Development Code were followed. Public interest in this rezoning request is low. A neighborhood and community meeting regarding the rezoning was held on site on April 11th, and there were 2 attendees. At the time of this writing, one letter of public comment was received. Opposition was expressed, stating concerns that the rezone will change the dynamics from a residential street to a commercial area. Here are some sample motions for you all to consider. That's all I have for you. The applicants have a brief presentation as well.
All right, we'll hear from the applicant.
Okay. Trying to get this pulled up real quick. We have it as a separate PDF.
Mayor Hall and Board of Trustees, thank you for listening to our second application to rezone from RM to A1, as these board meetings are our only avenue to be heard. We are Denise and Don Borda, 1/3 owners of 440 Valley Road, with my brother and sister and their two families. This has been the Delaney family home for 40 years. Don and I are the only part-time residents. My brother and sister have been here for 20 years as resident workforce. We're located on the accommodation highway, as Planner Washam described. The diagonal road is Business Highway 34, and then the horizontal road at the top of the page is Valley Road. We are sandwiched between two churches, which are both accommodations. The large green roof and the large parking lot are accommodations, and that's the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Then to the west, above Valley Road, is the Christian Science Church. It also has 2 buildings and a large parking lot. Across the street, across Business Highway 34, that first driveway is Cinnamon's Bakery. It is commercial outlying. The next driveway is, as mentioned, the Fall River Lodge, which was rezoned to A1 in 2011. And then further down the road, off the map, are 2 additional homes that are A1. Next slide. 440 Valley Road, does have 2 structures, as mentioned, the house up at the top, and then the bunkhouse sits right on top of Business Highway 34. My brother lives in the single-family dwelling. He is the on-site manager, as he's been for 15 years. And then the floor plan, again, this is the small accommodation with 3 guest units, 1,250 square feet, 270, 400, and 572 square feet. It is family operated, 15 years, no complaints, no noise complaints, no complaint of any type. This is a low interest, as was mentioned, 0 objections, rezone from RM to A1. There is no planned development. Our first neighborhood meeting, on our first application, we had no attendees. On the second one, we had 2 attendees. They were the owners of the Fall River Lodge, and they are in support of this rezone. Our family has been in Estes Park since 1986. My father purchased the property as commercial outlying. As Director Joseph states in 2010, it has been commercial for at least 25 years, so going back to the 70s. We are here for one reason, to correct the mistakes of the past. And I might also add, my father also, when in 1987, a year after they purchased it, he was an architect and the chief of planning and engineering at Purdue University for 26 years. He drew up the plans and he obtained the permit 1 year later in 1987 for an accommodation. We are here for one reason, to restore the commercial zoning. The first mistake was the 2000 citywide rezone, which downzoned the property from commercial CO to residential single-family, although there were 2 existing structures on the property. This led to the second mistake, which had to be corrected with the corrective rezone, but then goes on to label the studio guest units as new single-family dwellings, though there were no changes from the 87 permitted plans, which were specifically designed in accordance with the 1985 Universal Building Code as studio cottages that were less than 600 square feet each. CDD then went on to correctively rezone the property to RM, and accommodations are now allowed on RM zoned property. We believe that building a future is not possible without acknowledging the past. I would recommend to the town to maybe also embrace this statement. If you just listen to what planning presents, you would never know that this property was purchased as commercial outlying, or that it was commercial outlying for 25 years, or that it was designed as an accommodation in 1987, or a word about the 2000 townwide zone rezoning, or the 2010 corrective rezone. I thank you, Trustee Lancaster, because you did acknowledge, after hearing our history in the last meeting in January, 5 months ago, and you stated this should be fixed. It is a mess, it is an embarrassment, and it is simple to fix. Thank you.
For the benefit of our new trustees, and welcome, we have a long chronology, but I'm going to try to just make this much quicker and just note a couple of the other mistakes that involved the property, which included unannounced site inspections by the county in 2008, which led to harassing my 86-year-old father-in-law at that time, and it led to a false 5-unit floor plan that was drafted up by the county, and this prompted the Community Development Department to file a complaint with the police claiming that there was false code violations for working without a permit. And during all of this, in early 2009, the town lost all of our files and records, including the 1987 permit. And they were lost or misplaced, and they were not found for 14 years until we submitted 2 CORA requests and recovered 19 records on the property. These events, coupled with the 2010 corrective rezone mistakes, led to a misrepresentation of the building's classification. Subsequent ordinances in 2017 and 2023 then required the small accommodation, which is all under one roof, to obtain 3 business licenses and 3 workforce housing fees that now total $5,150, which we paid in January. That is literally 100 times more than any current A1 property pays in Estes Park, which is $50. So we're paying over $5,000 more than anyone else in town. And that brings us to our current rezoning situation. In our application, our initial application was submitted in October 20th of 2025, prior to the town vote on ballot measure 300 and 301. Absent of any town policy or guidance at that time, we were not formally instructed to obtain signatures pertaining to ballot 300 until one day prior to the January 20th Planning Commission meeting, when it was noted in the Planning Commission packet. We did not think our application was subject to ballot 300. We were wrong. The town board subsequently denied our rezoning request solely on the basis of ballot 300 on January the 27th, and apologized for all the zoning mistakes and actions of the past. And it was stated that if we could obtain the required signatures required by Ordinance 1125, then they would hopefully rush this thing right through. Trustee Brown added, and we appreciated it too, saying that this was appalling, and that the Bordas and Delaney's have gone through zoning classifications, and they've really been put through the ringer and been inappropriately rezoned twice. And the bunkhouse, it certainly fits very well with a small resort lodge. And I'll now go to the 300 issue. Over the next 3 weeks after that meeting, we laboriously collected 23 of the possible 31 approval signatures, or 74%, from property owners within 500 feet of the property, and submitted them to the town clerk on February the 25th of this year. This could not have been accomplished without the assistance of the town citizens, who provided actual physical addresses and maps showing the 31 properties applicable to ballot 300, and to help us contact those neighbors both in town and across the country. And this is one of the maps provided by a local citizen. You'll notice on it the X is our property, and the very large property number 1 is the Rocky Mountain National Park. And just a note about them, they have claimed that they are not a neighbor, that they are a referring agency, and that they will not participate in this type of a process. So just for future reference. I would like to mention that the Community Development Department did provide us with mailing addresses for 27 properties, but most of those were post office boxes and ones from out of state, and they did not identify where those properties were located. So the citizens helped us out tremendously. At the next regularly scheduled town board meeting, we presented to the town board our signatures required by Ordinance 1125, but we were informed that they could not reverse their denial and did not think to allow for a continuance when they did vote, which was an option and was also made available in the development code. We were then instructed to resubmit our application and complete the entire process all over again, which we have done. On January the 27th, 2026, the town board unanimously approved Resolution 12-26, which denied our rezoning of 440 Valley Road solely for failure to satisfy the requirements under ballot 300, Ordinance 1125. The resolution went on to state that the application for rezoning does meet the criteria for an official rezoning map amendment as listed in Section 3.3 of the Estes Park Development Code, but does not comply with the citizen-initiated Ordinance 11-25. So we interpret that to mean that the ballot 300 issue is the main issue that you're facing this evening. We're here today to demonstrate that we have fully satisfied the requirements under ballot 300, Ordinance 1125, and did so on February the 25th of 2026. And we appreciate you listening and welcome any comments. Thank you.
Before I open it to the trustees for questions and comments, is there any opposition comment from the public? And I see none. Trustees, questions or comments?
We've got first a question for Planner Washam, and then a question for you as well. So prior to this rezoning, did the property fail to meet the requirements of RM zoning or for any reason, or does it meet the requirements of RM zoning as is?
From my understanding, it does meet the requirements for RM. They were built as dwelling units, and there's more than one. And I believe that's why it was, the applicants were encouraged to go with the RM zoning back in 2010, because at that time.
So with the single family home and 3 units together, that still meets RM zoning requirements.
Correct.
And to meet resort lodge requirements, do you need to have someone physically present on to, greet guests, process people running the places? Is that a requirement for resort lodges?
I don't believe so. I believe that would be under the municipal code if it is. However, they do already operate that way.
I know they operate
okay.
that way, but what I'm wondering is, I certainly support this rezoning, just no question about it. But I wonder if there might be other groups of vacation homes that are congregated together in one place that might want to seek accommodation zoning in order to avoid the impact fee? Or is that going to be problematic without having a resort manager present?
Mayor Hall, Trustee Brown, I do not see this as creating precedents. This is a very specific issue, as the board has noted. There's a long history of precedents where this is flip-flopped back and forth. I can tell you from staff standpoint, this does absolutely not open the door to other requests that are not in line with the general principles we've heard today, and this is such a unique story. I would not anticipate we'll run into this again.
Okay, but I know we've had vacation homes that are congregated like in a condo development. And could those be conceivably converted to accommodation zoning if they were in some other sort of zoning currently?
I would think we would consider those without regard to this case.
I know, I get it.
Trustee Brown, I see you looking for a yes/no answer. The answer is yes, that there could be applications for rezoning in order to get around the linkage fee. Getting around the linkage fee is not a justification for rezoning.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to understand what makes a difference between a resort lodge and a vacation rental, and I'm not sure there's much difference, at all when you get right down to it. Having said that, as I said before at the prior one, it's really unfortunate what you've had to go through, because I know it was commercial to begin with. Why it was ever changed, just because you have lodging there doesn't make sense to me, but that is my question for the applicant, if I could. Thank you.
I was wondering, can I also comment on your earlier questions to Kara? The corrective rezone in 2010 was done, again, when all the files went lost and missing. Right. So they didn't have the 1987 permit, or saw the intent of these always being studio cottage units specifically designed under 600 square feet each under the Unified Building Code at that time, provided to our father-in-law by the town. So and also RM does not allow for accommodations. So that was the mistake. We were boxed into something, renting these properties, but they were accommodations which are not allowed in RM.
So my question for you is, tell me a little bit more about what was involved in getting the signatures to meet 300 requirements, and how long it took you and the effort involved.
Roughly took us, about 25 days without having really good information as to who owned what properties and where. I mean, a lot of them, again, were post office boxes out of town. It was very rigorous to contact the property owners. There were 2 local citizens that gave us a lot of help with this kind of mapping and with more defined lists of who these people were.
Okay,
and where
they were able
located.
to help you research
So a lot of
to
it was,
find out who
was
they were.
phone calls across the country, doing Google searches to find people, as well as going door to door. We got 10 or 11 going door to door.
Oh, okay.
There's still 2 that we've never located, and we've had 2 objections, which are really kind of based on misinformation.
Yeah.
But it was a very laborious chore, and we couldn't have done it without the local help.
And that we made up the forms. We had no forms, and pretty much the town, we were told by town employees that they were not to talk about ballot 300. This was back in January, February.
The town has already affirmed the accuracy of the numbers.
No, I
don't
know. I get
I don't
that.
know why we need to probe further on that.
Possibly because it's an illustration of some of the difficulties involved.
But that's not relevant to this public hearing.
But we did do it in about 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Let's stay within the bounds of this public hearing.
it's relevant to this public hearing to know what the applicants had to go through to get this done on what is clearly a pretty non-controversial rezoning. You know, I think this board as a whole believes that this should be rezoned, and we appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Trustee, or Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton.
My question's for Kara, please. And kind of to build on that, the letter of opposition that we most recently received that was in the packet expressed or stated some doubt about the validity of those neighboring signatures. So this is a staff question. I appreciate the background that's been given in what the board have already done. But what is the staff process for receiving those signatures and any verification that was done? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious what happens when they're presented to you.
Thank you. So verification, Town Attorney Kramer did look through them as well. It was challenging to verify them because we didn't require them to be notarized. We didn't have any direction as far as that. But town staff did look through every parcel that was on that mailing list. Every parcel number, matched it with every property owner, and looked at the signature that was provided, went through it. I personally went through it 3 times to make sure we weren't missing anything. Based on the information that we had in the ballot language, that's really all we could go off of.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Maris?
Another one for Tara. Just wanted to verify if this property sold in the future with the A1 accommodation zoning, there wouldn't be able to be an increase in density as well, correct?
That's correct. I want to emphasize that in my staff report as well as a presentation. The owners have no intention on redeveloping, but if it ever was to be sold, the maximum density would be 3 units.
Okay, great. And then just to the property owners, you know, on behalf of the town and our processes, I'm so sorry you've had to go through this whole process.
Trustee Ago?
Okay, thanks. My 2 questions were answered. The third question I have is probably for the town clerk, who disappeared, for the town administrator. What then would be our course of action on those fees that have been paid for the year if the zoning changes?
We do not refund fees for the workforce housing regulatory linkage fee. So absent direction from the board, that's where that stands.
And I would probably make a recommendation that we refund half of that fee as a gesture in this non-precedent setting case, because they're going to be paying a different fee to run a different business under a different zoning. So I want to get your guidance on that before I include that in my motion.
I think that would be a separate action item in a separate board meeting. It is not relevant in this public hearing, although I appreciate the empathy.
Trustee Igo, I would say that I agree it would probably be a separate item because we need to look carefully at the ordinance language.
Sure.
But that might be contradicting the ordinance that's already in place about how fee payments work. And I suspect that it would.
I trust your guidance, but I trust your guidance, so I'm going to take that. And I'm prepared to make a motion if...
We're still in public hearing.
Roger.
I see no other comments. All reports, statements, exhibits, and written communications presented will be accepted as part of the record. This public hearing is closed. I will now take a motion.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve ordinance 1126 to rezone 440 Valley Road from RM to A1.
And I will happily second that.
Trustee Eigel moved to approve 1126. Trustee Lancaster seconded. Any further comments? We'll vote. Thank you, Boris. Resolution 7726, thank you, contract renewal with Survey, is it Survey? He knows how to pronounce it. Is it a soft C or championship rodeo for the 2026 rooftop rodeo stock contracting? And Director Hinkle will talk about it.
It is Survey, so you had it right. So this is for the service contract for the stock contractor for the rooftop rodeo, Survey Championship Rodeo. They've been our stock contractor for 11 years now. And they provide the stock, the key personnel, the equipment, and everything that really goes into a PRCA rodeo. In 2025, unfortunately, we didn't bring this contract forward to the board. So we're bringing the renewal to the board this year. We have up to 2 renewals with Survey Championship Rodeo. It is a budgeted item, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
I'll ask if there's any public comment on this item. I don't see any. And any questions or comments for Director Hinkle? I have a suspended pencil there. I wasn't sure.
Oh, I was just getting ready to make a motion with.
Well, in that case, you can make a motion.
Mayor, I move for the approval of Resolution 7726, contract renewal with Survey Championship Rodeo for rooftop rodeo stock contracting in 2026.
And I second.
Trustee Eigel moved to approve. 7726, Trustee Meares seconded, and we can vote. And Rob, you win the prize for shortest topic today. And you're good to go. I see item 2, Town Administrator Mahalik says postponed by staff. Is that an incorrect, or is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor. That will come back at a to-be-determined board meeting. The timing of that contract is relevant and tied to a DOLA grant for design of the police facility.
8026 as on the approved agenda is postponed by staff as was written, and we'll move on to action item 3. I should have known when I saw Jackie walking up here. Resolution 8126, adoption of the 2025-2026 Water Master Plan.
Thank you, and I have a big cadre of people to help me today. So Jackie Wesley, Project Manager with Utilities. Also presenting Jason Fredericks, Water Superintendent, Jason Lang, Distribution Supervisor, and James Rossi, Treatment Supervisor. Long titles for these guys. We're happy to be with you today to talk about the master plan. We've done a series of study sessions. We've done Water 101, 102, and we've finally reached this point to be asking for consent to approve the master plan. Agenda, we'll go back through a little bit of the previous studies that we did, look at some statistics, distribution system recommendations, treatment system recommendations, talk about the capital improvement plan, when are we going to do what, preliminary opinion of probable construction cost, and then at the last study session we did, you all had asked for some significant public outreach, so we'll go through what we did for public outreach. When we look at the master plan, we're kind of looking at 3 pillars that we want to focus on: reliability, resilience, and customer experience. What we mean by reliability is that's the day-to-day, 7-day-a-week operations of the plant, assuming, or the plant and the system, assuming typical failures that you would see. This is not catastrophic events. It's, do we have the ability to reliably treat and distribute the treated water to our customers? When we talk about resilience, we're talking about what happens, how quickly can we recover from major events, fires, floods, et cetera, and how quickly can we adapt our system to changes and changed conditions. Those two are important because when James is up here, he's going to talk a lot about the limitations of the existing plants and how they may not be able to meet some of those reliability and resilience peers the way we would like to. And then the customer experience is the third important one, and that is that people get acceptable water. If there are outages, they're planned, they're short duration. We do have things that happen, so there will be outages, but how quickly, how soon can they experience, again, getting that water that's important to them? Do we have those planned outages with notification and reissuing compliant drinking water to our customers. So talk a little bit about the background on the population and demand projections. You know, Ruben put this graphic together, and I thought it was an interesting way to show the information. I had a table, didn't show as good. So this looks, if you look at a historical studies that they've done from 1985 through the current 2025 master plan, on the millions of gallons per day that were projected, you can see back in those earlier studies, significantly more demand was projected than what we noticed today. That's why we hired Harvey Economics as part of this to look at that 2025 demand projection. And that's in the appendix and Appendix A, and they had done that study session talking about what they looked at. They considered things like visitation to the Rocky Mountain National Park and, you know, the conversion of short-term rentals and how many people are coming in and what's happening at the schools and all kinds of things that were not necessarily part of all the previous detailed studies. Again, projections are an art and a science, so a lot of these, you know, we want to make sure as we move forward with anything in the future that we are going back and double checking our projections also, and we can hone in on what numbers make sense for us in the future. The dashed line on the 2025, the maroonish color, I guess it's maroon, is the upper level. They had a high growth rate and a low growth rate. Our growth rate is much less than what had previously been expected. So that's why you also see that drop in that the angle of the line is a lot shallower. So what this looks like from the high growth and low growth scenario, currently we're running in the low to mid 3.3 is about the right number for our peak day demand. There will be an anomaly here or there in data, and usually those were explained by some sort of major event or something. The low growth rate shows us at 3.8 MGD for peak day. The higher growth rate shows us at 4.2. So we picked the middle number as the planning level number to use for sizing our infrastructure in the master plan. And I'm going to have Jason come up and talk a little bit about statistics.
Thank you. So going through the statistics, what we're talking about here is that the population that we serve is designated by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. That includes our residential population, the commercial population, or the commercial resident, or commercial services, as well as our transient population that we have through the town. The number is just slightly under 17,000. CDPHE is also saying that we have 8,399 service connections. Side note there, we have 5,856 active metered water accounts. We have over 125 miles of pipeline and 9 storage tanks that deliver water to our customers. 831 fire hydrants that obviously provide fire protection, and also we use them to help our water quality in the water system by flushing. So our combined treatment capacity for the 2 plants that we have now is 7 million gallons. Our 9 pressure zones there, that's 8 pressure zones that serve our residential and then our commercial customers, and then we have the 9th one. 8 of them are for that, and then the 9th one is our water fill station. And our water laboratory performs over 12,000 tests per year. So those are just some statistics we wanted to share. This next slide, talking about our existing conditions. This highlights that our water system is currently serving the community well today, but many of its core components were built for a different era. Across treatment, distribution, storage, pumping, we see common themes, which are aging infrastructure, limited redundancy, operational constraints, and increasing maintenance demands. Some of these assets remain in good condition. The system as a whole lacks flexibility and resilience expected of a modern utility. These conditions are primary drivers behind the recommendations in the Water Master Plan and our long-term investments in reliability, regulatory compliance, water quality protection, and service to our community. So with that, I'm going to introduce Supervisor Lang to continue talking about our distribution system.
Thanks, Jason. Our distribution system serves residential customers, commercial businesses, consecutive systems such as the YMCA and Windcliff areas, the water fill station, as well as the 831 fire hydrants within the system. About 35% of our pipes are made of material of cast iron and galvanized steel, and typically undersized. That equates to about 30 to 35 miles of pipe that needs to be replaced. The rest of our system has higher than typical distribution pressures. So a typical distribution system in the rest of the country is going to range between 80 and 100 PSI. Our pressures go all the way up to 275 PSI. So when we have a little break, it turns into a really big problem very, very quickly. And then in the winter, because of the seasonal use that we're experiencing, the water will age in those pipes when those secondary homes are unoccupied and those homes are left empty. The water just sits in the pipe, and that adds to additional maintenance because we have to flush that water out of the system to stay up with the CDPHE guidelines and make sure that that water stays safe for anybody that's going to drink it. The distribution system pipeline, as I previously mentioned, 35 miles of cast iron and galvanized pipe. Since the 1970s, the town has been putting in ductile iron pipe. Ductile iron pipe is a highly resilient, flexible material that should last over 100 years. Since it's been put in the 70s, we've had a chance to dig it up and look at it, take coupon samples out. It's still in excellent condition due to our corrosion our corrosion control program and flushing programs. So the ductile iron is in good shape, but everything previous to the 1970s, the galvanized steel, the cast iron, is really in bad shape. The typical lifespan of that is about 50 years. We have pipeline that's goes back to the 30s that are still in use. Luckily, no wood pipes. But as this graph points out, it's important to know that that ductile iron isn't going to last forever either. Projected lifespan of ductile iron is 100 years. I should be 90, so that'll be good. It shouldn't be on my watch, but it is something that we really need to stay on top of. The distribution system piping is out of sight, out of mind, but it's a constant reminder to me. I am dealing with a main break on average once a month. Sometimes we get them all packed into 1 month, and it's a very, very busy month, and then we get a break for a few months, but on average, we're dealing with about 12 to 15 breaks a year. Our distribution system also consists of pump stations and storage tanks. We're doing the best that we can to maintain our existing infrastructure. You can see us coating a storage tank out there at the Thunder Mountain site and doing a repair at the same tank in the middle slide. Typical concrete storage tank should last between 30 and 50 years. Well, the problem is we have some tanks from the 40s, from the 60s, and a couple from the 80s. Well, it doesn't take a mathematician to know that they're probably past their useful life. Again, we're doing the best we can, utilizing tank mixing to prevent ice from forming in the tanks and stressing those tanks on the inside and trying to coat the exterior of these tanks, but with time, everything needs to be replaced. So what are we going to do about it? So the distribution system capital improvement projects that we have in this plan essentially look at, in the near term, we're going to replace the Thunder Mountain tank. We have attempted to make a significant repair on this tank. It was deemed unsuccessful, and after coring assessments through engineering firms and concrete testing companies, essentially that concrete is degrading to such a point that it needs to be replaced. So that's a plan for 2027 for the Thunder Mountain tank. That tank was built in 1984. It was likely poured in unideal situations, and in the dead of winter is the tribal knowledge that's been passed on to me, but that tank needs to be replaced. So that's one of the 4 tanks that was part of the issue. So when we're talking about the Big Thompson tank, that tank is our oldest tank in the system, built in 1941. That tank, though it serves one of the largest pressure zones in the Estes Valley is actually one of the smallest in capacity. So we did this distribution system analysis that essentially looked at where we needed the storage the most. It looked at our largest pressure zone, and it looked at where we can get the most bang for our buck. And essentially, if we replace the Thunder Mountain, or the Big Thompson tank, we're able to get rid of that tank from 1941, but then we're able to go across town to the 1965 tank and remove that as well. And then the Fall River Estates tank, which is in a different pressure zone, can also be removed because you'd have that added storage capacity at the center of the Estes Valley. And then the Fall River Estates pump station, it's mere feet away from the Fall River. It needs to be moved out of the floodplain. It's undersized. It was built in the 80s. It should have the latest technology, VFDs, for better efficiency with pumping and better fire protection for the Fall River corridor. As far as the pipeline replacement program, we have 35 miles of pipe that needs to be replaced, cast iron, galvanized. I know I'm a broken record, but I see it every day. If we replace this pipe 1 to 2 miles every year and budget it, hopefully we can get most of that infrastructure out of the ground and replaced within the next 20 years. And not only will that prevent the breaks, but it's also going to improve the fire protection for the Estes Valley, give us fire protection where we need it, get rid of those 2-inch mains, and then allow for better water quality as we loop the lines when we're putting those new pipes in the ground.
So the Fall River one would
Yes.
move, but the Big Thompson and Thunder Mountain are replaced in the same place that they're at?
So we have a lot of names that are redundant. So there's a Fall River pump station and there's a Fall River Estates tank.
Oh, okay.
And when I'm talking about replacing the Big Thompson tank with a larger capacity, 750,000 gallons in phase 1, we'd be able to get rid of the Fall River Estates tank from 1981. There's a separate project in the distribution system master plan that looks at actually replacing the pump station as well, because that's just feet away from the river.
Yeah.
It's not in a good spot. It floods when we get high river levels and old technology. And then side note, if anybody's interested in a distribution system tour in the future, I knew that came up in the plant tour, I'd be happy to host in the future. So, and I will kick it off to James.
Good evening, Board. And I wanted to thank everyone that took the opportunity to come out and did a tour earlier this week. And I look forward to those that will be coming out in the next tour, I think that's scheduled. Yeah, yep. So the town of Estes operates 2 water filtration plants. The first was built in the early 1970s and has a single source that pulls water from the Glacier Creek. And our second filtration plant was originally built in the early 90s and as a conventional filtration plant, and it was retrofitted from that conventional plant to a membrane filtration plant in around 2010. That facility pulls its source water from the Ramshorn Tunnel, and both facilities have served the town well since they've been built, but they are aged and their technologies are from the generation that they were originally built. And that was a time that had different standards and regulations and quality. Let's see. The current facilities are aged, and they, in a recent assessment, they were identified to be in fair to poor condition. And with their limited redundancies, we have been able to identify that there is a high impact based on criticality and the limited redundancies that each facility has. So we are in a situation where we have gotten a good use out of these facilities, but they are at the end of their life or near the end of their life. And as from a water operator perspective who has a primary duty of public health, it is very, there's a sense of urgency to take action to address the obvious and clear challenges that we currently have and that we will be facing in the future, especially being that any new facility is going to take years to get to a point where we will actually be able to operate and rely on that new facility. We just need to not wait until something significant happens to take action, because at that point it will be too late and it will be costly for the community.
I want it all done in August. Can you get that done?
I would love that as well.
I think it's incredible the work you folks do to continue to maintain this exceedingly aged system, and I feel the sense of urgency, and I think the board certainly does.
I'd also like to say that it's disheartening when you hear a plant built in 1991 that I gave a grand opening tour at that's at the end of its life. So.
You've got a little more left, Chris.
Okay, with that, I will pass it back to Jason.
So we're summarizing in this slide the treatment alternatives and the outcome that we assessed as a group. I think we presented this in a board study session last summer about how we arrived at this conclusion here. What we arrived at was the decision for a new water treatment plant that operates year-round, and to modify or keep extending the useful life at Mary's Lake Water Treatment Plant so that we can, run that as long as possible. And then we'll decommission Glacier Water Treatment Plant. This option provides us the best regulatory resilience and treatment redundancy that we've talked about that we need for the system. So that's...
Yeah, this is basically the chart we saw before, right? Or has this modified? This is basically what we saw at the time with the preferred.
Yes, Mayor. Yeah. So that's what we've arrived at. There's other options. The first three are definitely cost prohibitive and don't all necessarily meet our long-term objectives. And that's the one that we arrived at. So with that, I'll pass this on to Jackie Lang. I'm sorry, Jackie Wesley. Oh, man. I'm a great public speaker, by the way. So thanks.
No. So what order are we doing things in? Rate study, we were supposed to have a study session today on the rate study, but unfortunately the consultant had a conflict, and so we have moved that to a discussion item for sometime in July. I don't know if it was the July 14th or the subsequent meeting where we talk about the where we are with the rate study and some preliminary findings. So that'll be for this year. And then, as Jason mentioned, the Thunder Mountain storage tank replacement is going into budgeting for next year, so we'd replace that tank next year in 2027. The concrete core analysis said within the next couple of years you need to go ahead and do something about this quickly. So that's why we're in kind of a rush on the Thunder Mountain storage tank and trying to get that replaced sooner rather than later. There's a lot of planning, assuming that the board does approve this master plan. There's a lot of planning that has to go into the new water treatment plant and raw water supply. The master plan is very high altitude. There's a lot of lower level altitude things that have to be done in order to move into design. So we need to get that planning piece done and started in 2027. And then the existing construction, existing plant improvements, minimal improvements at Glacier because again, that one will be retired. And then safety and process improvements at Mary's Lake. And again, within the next couple years. I didn't assign exact years to this because part of this falls out to how do we budget and schedule these also. Begin design on the Fall River Estates pump station replacement. That's the one that's in the floodplain. And then planning design for the Big Thompson tank and phase 1 replacement. There will be a phase 2 just kicked a little further out, so we're trying to spread some of the costs out. Midterm-wise, moving into the new treatment plant design construction, and then the pipe replacement and renewal program initiation. It all costs money. Unfortunately, everybody in this area seems to be at the same place with their infrastructure, with major replacements needed at the same time. We get a lot of questions when we've had the public engagement on, this is all coming at the same time. Why is that? And honestly, it's the infrastructure was built and constructed and started at about the same time. So it's at the end of its useful life, and it's not a lot different than what you see when you see utility and asset scorecards across the country on things are C and D because they were all built in the same window of time. So those are the estimated costs. It's really important to note that these are 2026 really high altitude, rough numbers. There's no design done behind these. So this is our planning level cost. We hope that they would come down and not go up. So it's based on recent bids from other areas, what other clients or other municipalities are doing, and escalating previous estimates using an ENR cost index. So moving on from that, you all asked us in the last session to look at some pretty significant public outreach, and I believe Trustee Hazelton, you're the one who said try more than one approach. So we did look at multiple approaches for how we were going to do this. We had a series of public meetings. The first one was at the museum, and one person showed up, so there wasn't great attendance. The next two, with the March 19th and March 24th, they were drop-in sessions over a couple hours. People could come by whenever. We had boards up, and the staff was here to answer any questions. We got better attendance at the next two. That first one was not super great attendance, but we did vary the times and the locations in order to try to capture people before, after work, location of where they are in town, and so forth. We also did a couple of Rotary Club presentations and got a lot of questions from folks there. They were very engaged in the Rotary presentations. And then we've used various printed information. We've had a number of articles that have been published. We have a frequently asked questions set. We also have a pending June utility bill message that's going out talking about the master plan, so we reach out that way as well. We met with the Estes Valley Fire Protection District with what's your correct title again? Division Chief Kammer, and he would like to do a follow-up with some of the staff from the Fire Protection District so that we can talk about what the master plan means for them. And it's exciting for them because there's a lot more fire hydrants as we do pipe replacement. Look at Carriage Hills. We went from 4 in that one area to 25. Big difference. We had a chamber drop in, and that was decently attended. We did that here at Town Hall. And then we have our website. So there's been numerous ways to outreach. I would say there hasn't been a lot of interest yet. Maybe there will be as we move to talking about the costs more. I added one thing from what's in your packet on this next slide. So I do want to point out this is a newer thing that we did. And it is a video that we're going to have a series of these videos that will be out for public. So I know Jason, he gets to be seen again. He loves this. But you will notice in this, it does have the Fall River Estates pump station in the background too, so you can see the difference between them.
I'm drinking this water every day. I'm feeding it to my elderly mother, my children. I feel a personal responsibility to make sure that this water is the highest quality possible and fundamentally safe for everybody within this community. EPA regulations are constantly evolving. There are always additional guidelines that are being brought out every year or two that we must meet. And it's very difficult to anticipate what those are going to be. PFAS is an excellent example as a new regulation that's come out that water divisions, water departments, water districts are all trying to meet these standards. And having a newer facility will meet these newer EPA standards that aren't just coming out in the next 5 years, but the next 50 years. When you're trying to upgrade something from the 1970s, it just doesn't work. You end up spending more money to renovate something from the 1970s to bring it up to today's engineering standards than it would to build new. The distribution system really doesn't work just by upgrading the pump stations or the storage tanks or the distribution system piping. It all ties together and it all needs to be upgraded and brought up to modern standards in order for it to function properly. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of water mains in our system that might be less than 8 inches, 6 inches, 4 inches, and unfortunately in many cases even 2-inch water mains are not uncommon. Those 2-inch water mains may be able to serve the customer's water in the interim, but they cannot be connected to a fire hydrant and they ultimately are prone to failure. Once you dig up 100 water main breaks, you're gonna see it the same way that I do, and it's a decaying infrastructure that does need to be replaced for the health and safety of the community, and then also for the fire protection within the community as well.
So you saw in that video also the background from one of our older pump stations, and then the background on the blue pipe one was our new pump station at Prospect Mountain. So that shows you the contrast between kind of the configuration. Obviously, things as they age deteriorate some, but just the layout and the controls and everything is so much different than it was when those original pump stations were built. So the typical questions that we did get at the drop-in sessions was, what about drought conditions? Everybody's sensitive right now to our drought condition, and how is the master plan looking at or considering any of those? We have a pretty diverse portfolio of water rights, and we've got supplies that will meet our projected demand. Again, that's a projection. We do still want to encourage and always encourage people for water conservation and doing smart water-wise types of things, but there's no specific implementation with water restrictions or anything like that. And that was the most asked question. I would have thought it would be about financing, but it was really about the drought. So another frequent question, where are you going to put the plant? That would be something that we look at in 2027. Right now, we do not want to zero in on a particular location, pigeonholing us into something. We want to get a consultant to help us and follow a process kind of similar to what you did with the PD, where we look at all kinds of sites, not just limit ourselves. It's going to be challenging to have a site selection. It's not a small location. It's not a small place. So there's lots of impacts that need to be considered, and it's not a quick process. And then how are we going to pay for this? Are the rates going to go up? We're going to try to find whatever grants we can, but you can't bank on grants, and we'll try to use whatever low interest rate loan funding we can, whether it's USDA or WIFIA or whatever other mechanism we can. But we'd like to do actually looking at how are we going to do this in the 2027 into 2028 to try to develop a funding plan. As we will talk to you in the rate study, there will be rate increases, and we're trying to right now figure out how significant will those be, and then get board direction on from which way you want to go. Do you do a lot up front? Do you a little bit over time, et cetera? So that is one of the steps that we'll need to bring back to you to say how are we going to address our rates. They have not increased since 2022. So that is something to note, that we do need to raise rates already. And then with the significant investment, we want to go ahead and start sooner rather than waiting till later to try to bring our rates up to help us afford this. So our request is that the town board adopt the water master plan update, allowing us to staff to initiate detailed implementation planning and feed cost information into the ongoing rate study. And the team and I will take any discussion or questions.
Is there any public comment on this? And hopefully if there was, they'd say they feel the sense of urgency too. Somehow I think we need to make sure that we have an awful lot of citizens or residents who understand that sense of urgency. Trustee Igo.
I think that you said people will probably pay attention when the money becomes a part of the conversation. I think you are probably right.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. I share Trustee Eshelman's sentiment. I remember the grand opening of the Marys Lake plant, and I'm slightly offended that it's at the end of its life. It's like having a doctor that's younger than you are or something. So this is a funny age.
We're going to make that one last a little longer, don't worry.
Oh, no, it already happened. So, oh, you mean I'm older than my doctor versus the plant's going to last longer?
No, we're going to make the plant last a little longer, too.
I thought that was more personal. Okay. I want to ask a couple of questions. In the outline that you showed us, it looked like Marys Lake and Glacier Creek are off the table for potential plant consideration. Is that accurate? Or my second part of the question is this a living document or the law?
Okay, so the first part, we did take a look at, could we get another raw water source to Marys Lake, and the cost was extreme. We hired a consulting firm, HDR, to look at that. And just to pump the raw water up to Marys Lake was pretty extensive cost. One of our big drivers is to make sure whatever the plant site is, it's capable of getting water from more than one source.
Mm-hmm.
What we have now is, one source really at Marys Lake and one source at Glacier. If anything happens to those single sources, then we're limited. So really one of the targets is to have a location that can get dual sources to it. So it's not completely off the table, but from a practicality perspective, it really doesn't make sense at Mary's Lake. Glacier is a possibility. So that is not off the table of the new plant being located at the current Glacier site. But we want to hire a consultant to help us go through all of that so that we all have a vision. We see things a certain way, but maybe there's a new lens, someone coming in and say, what about this? And we go, wow, why didn't we think of that? So we really do want that fresh set of eyes coming in to help us with siting.
Okay, well, I appreciate the acknowledgement. And then also when we have master plans and documents and multi-year things, plans, sometimes the terminology is living document and sometimes the terminology is, well, that's the law.
Yeah.
And I want to make a distinction because from my perspective, this is a document that is subject to revision, review, change,
Absolutely.
updating, and
Yeah.
just acknowledge that at the beginning that this isn't something, well, we got board direction in '26.
Yeah, absolutely, that's true, because things change, even that population projections, if something happens, it's gonna look different.
Right.
But right now, that was based on best information available,
Right.
based on what the consultant saw, et cetera. But we certainly can modify this through a water master plan update, or make some minor corrections to things that Trustee Eshelman has pointed out too, so there are ways to correct
Well, the amount
things.
of work that's gone into this is remarkable, and I appreciate this foresight into what's coming. And I'm looking forward to upgrading it. After the very good tour, and I appreciate, James, that you were so attentive. What struck me during that tour was, no disrespect, Jackie Rubin, we see you all the time here in this room. What we don't see is the operations side of water. And I was really impressed at the level of professionalism, personal attention, personal investment, and what you said in the video. Where
Jason.
hiding behind you, yeah. Jason, what you said in the video is, this is caring for my family. And I think that investment in the work that you do really shows in the tour that you shared with us. So thanks for that, and thanks for your commitment to the community.
Hey, Mayor, Trustee Eigel, just one quick point on the question of is this plan set in stone? I think a great example of the fact that the town is willing to evolve and look at operational data and make different decisions and changes to master plans is the change between the 2015 master plan and where we are now. It's effectively a flip-flop. If you look at the recommendation in that 2015 master plan, the recommended options were essentially the construction of a second raw water source to Mary's Lake water treatment plant and a new pre-treatment building with some additional treatment options at 5.0 MGDs. And having heard the decision process that we've gone through over the last 5 years or so through various iterations, through conversations from previous water employees, including Trustee Eshelman, we've effectively changed that direction almost entirely. We've seen cost evolve, we've seen the operational environment of the system evolve, and we've gone from a specific recommendation in 2015 in the master plan to a very different one now. So I think, yes, these things are always subject to change and updating with new information as it comes forward.
I would like to add one thing also. Most of the funding agencies require us to have a master plan, and using the 2015 one, it's out of date. So by approving this, we are actually able to advance to say, here's our approved master plan, here's the path that we're going to follow. That can change, but they do want you to have a plan. So this master plan is a step in that direction.
So I've got one question and one concern. The question was, it was mentioned somewhere along the line that we have a PSI of up to above 200 PSI, and that normal one would be like 80 to 100. What's going on there? Why is our pressure so high because of physical constraints? What's going on?
Yes.
Yes.
So the topography, our beautiful environment that we live here in Estes Park, the house is way up on the ridge, and then the downtown corridor a little bit lower. That's the fluctuation in pressure.
So you got to create a lot of pressure to get it up high.
Correct.
Basically.
Correct. Yeah, it's like that roller coaster. You got to build up that momentum to get to the other side. So that's part of it. The other side of it is, we talked about those undersized mains. There's a lot of undersized mains. These 2-inch galvanized pipes, they slowly constrict over the decades. They get very, very small. And then we also have a lot of shared service lines, unfortunately, because this was a collection of cabins in the 1940s and 1950s before it expanded to what we have here today. And that pressure is actually the only thing that serves a lot of those customers water. So There are lots of technologies out there to lower the pressure in distribution systems, and long-term, that would be where we would like to go. However, the small diameter piping and some of these other distribution system issues are going to have to be addressed before that can happen.
And those are largely private pipes.
Private, but again, the 2-inch mains is a town asset. A 2-inch main that gets the tuberculation and the corrosion inside of it that then comes down to about a 1/2 inch. It's still ours to maintain. And by lowering the pressure to something reasonable, it's arguable that those customers won't have the water pressure in their homes to take a shower.
So you might still have to keep the pressure up because of everything on the ends.
But long-term, we get that pipe replaced, we can absolutely look at lowering the pressure, and that's something Jason and Fredericks and I have talked about, and we would ultimately like lower system pressures, but if we were to turn down the pressure tonight, we'd get a lot of calls.
Don't turn it down. The only other thing is the table or the graph you had about the various analyses of capacity levels that you needed is a little concerning because it was so all over the board. And I guess it is still a moving target to a certain extent because of demographics and everything else. But how confident are we right now as to those volume levels? And what sort of flexibility do we have as we design this?
Yeah, there's, we refer to it as a cone of certainty. So this cone of certainty is pretty narrow today. But 5 years from now, it's a little wider, and 10 years from now, it's a little wider, and 15 years. So it just, the further out you go, the less certain we are that's a great number, because things do change, which is why we always advocate for renewing and updating population and demand projections on a pretty regular basis, just to see if we're tracking the same. When you look at that graph, you can see that back in like 85, they had a projection for today's demand, and today's demand number is not at all what they projected.
Not at all.
But that's not wrong. It's just they were projecting based on what they knew at the time too. We've had, water conservation measures like low flow toilets and shower heads and so forth that have affected things, just people's use of water. Who did it? They may have looked at more front range type of consumption demands. We don't have the irrigation.
Population growth.
Yeah. So, just a lot of things go into why those aren't applicable today. That doesn't mean they were wrong then.
But the design presumably will have some capability to retrofit to increase when needed.
Yeah, one of our big drivers is to make this really flexible in the plant design so that if population goes up, we can add treatment without making a huge modification to the plant. Or if a regulation comes down that says now you have to add some special thing at the beginning of the plant or at the end of the plant, we have T's and ways to connect stuff. So that's part of the driver for really looking at a new approach to this design and how do we design a plant that's more flexible and bendable for what we don't know.
Fabulous work, all of you. Really, very impressive. I think Trustee Heigl's probably right that the interests of the community will raise as we deal with the water rates. And I think it would be interesting as we do that to kind of understand what other communities like us have in the way of rate structures.
Yeah, we asked our rate consultant to look at that, and they'll talk about this in the next meeting, but it's really hard to get an apples to apples comparison.
Sure
so a lot of
is.
them have different structures and they're set up a little differently, but they'll go through that too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Eshelman, and I would encourage efficacy in getting to the end of this topic. We have quite a bit more business to do tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not just picking on you, Chris. We've been on this topic for 45 minutes and we all understand the great work that they're doing and, carry on.
The video was great. That was a.
And Jason really was dying to do that. He wants to do another one.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Yeah. It's not his first one. So I'm just curious on this will be coming up, I'm sure in the future, the 4MGD rating. As far as design, and you talk about building in redundancy to a treatment plant. I've personally seen over 4MGD as a staff member, so I would just make a suggestion to look at that, especially if you're building in redundancy. And I noticed in the master plan, it did say affirm for MGD with multiple trains on top of that. So I would definitely encourage that.
Certainly.
The rate study, sooner the better. I think that's super important. We've gone, in my opinion, way too many years without a rate study to prepare for this type of stuff. It's going to be a big pill to swallow, especially when I see 8 to 12 in Mary's, when yet we're looking at another treatment plant. That one concerns me a little bit. Those type of things concern me. As a whole, I think this master plan is much better than the 2015 one. Even as a staff member, we had concerns with that 2015 master plan, so I feel like this is, as a whole, is a better thing. I think there's some details, some technical details in there that I think we should, it's a public document, we should make sure that those are correct. So I'd like to see some of those things. I don't think it's important enough to stop progress. I know we all want to move forward on this, and so one of the things that I also saw on that, just as, again, suggestion, you have very capable staff, and I know they've built a pump house in-house, a pump station in-house, and when I see a $2 to $3 million cost for a Fall River Estates pump station, and I know we built Thunder Mountain for $300,000, so I'd like to see, that's my own personal opinion, that staff is capable and they should be turned loose on some of those type of things, those things to be considered. Let's see. The one other thing, it seems like we've been talking about the location of a plant for 4+ years, and now we're talking about bringing in a consultant to further consider talking about that. And I think there's a lot of staff knowledge and efforts spent that I personally think that some of those decisions can maybe be moved along without necessarily hiring a consultant for that. I know the consultant was for other things as well, not just that, but the staff knows the system best and can make great recommendations. So I would encourage that without spending more time and more money on that. Always portions of that can be good. But I do want to go on the record too as saying that master plan is a guiding tool, not the gospel. I know it's been referred to the gospel as sometimes in the past, so I just want to go on the record saying that it needs to have flexibility as we go forward. And I also want to state that as the future plant siting becomes a heavier topic, I also just want to state publicly that I am a YMCA employee. I work for the YMCA. And the statements that I make, the comments that I make are all based on my professional career prior to working for the YMCA. And so I just want the public to be aware that, you know, when I want to say that I do work for the YMCA, so people need to know that, they know that. So, but as a whole, great presentation, good video, and as a whole, I support the master plan with a few little tweaks. Okay? I know that wasn't quite the shortness that you wanted, Mayor, so.
I'm sure you'll use principles of rate evening over multiple years, so that'll take place when that happens. I would take a motion on this.
Mayor, I move for the approval of Resolution 81-26, adopting the 2025-2026 Water Master Plan.
I second.
Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton moved to approve this item. Trustee Brown seconded, and we can vote. We like you. We really like you. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I did take the tours two years ago, so looking forward to seeing them again on July 9. So, Ordinance 1226, adoption of the Wildfire Resiliency Code, presented by Director Correccia. I wondered why Steve was hanging around. I thought it was just for fun, but there his name shows up again. It's a public hearing, so we got to do this more officially. Let's see, I already named 1226, adoption of the Wildfire Resiliency Code. The Board of Trustees shall consider the information presented during the public hearing from the town staff, from the applicant, public comment, and written comments received on the item. Any member of the board may ask questions at any stage of the public hearing, which may be responded to at that time. Public hearing is open, and you'll give us the staff report.
Yes, Mayor, trustees. This item and the next one both involve the new statewide fire code. And the team that you'll be hearing from tonight, we have Division Chief Landcamer and Captain Sutherland from the Fire Protection District. We have Rich Navasio, our Chief Building Official, here as well. And our legal team, we have Town Attorney Kramer and Special Counsel White. So between this team, hopefully we have the knowledge available to answer any questions you have on this new code. And so tonight we're hoping to consider adoption of the new Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code as amended and with the appendices and as adopted by the Fire Protection District back in March. And so just a quick history. So the state adopted this code back in June of 25. It's a model code. So it was given for the municipalities to adopt. We could make it more strict, we couldn't make it less, but we could amend it. The fire district did offer some amendments, some local amendments, and again, adopted it in March. All towns, cities, we're supposed to adopt by July 1st. So that date is coming up very fast. And so for what is in this code as adopted by the Fire Protection District, just to go over high level, the whole entire Estes Valley is designated as part of this code. So every property in town, this code will apply to it. And what this code does, two things. On the building side, structure hardening requirements. So that those exterior materials will need to be non-combustible, fire resistant. Establishes site and area requirements around the structure. So that's more of the fire code element that we'll be looking at. This will apply to all new buildings and development. It will apply to additions, alterations greater than 500 square feet. It'll apply to the roof when more than 25% of that overall roof is modified. It'll apply to the exterior walls of a house or structure when more than 25% of that total wall area is modified. It also sets forth requirements for site and area plans that'll be submitted with the construction documents, typically with the building permit submittal. And so this is the map adopted the Fire Protection District. As you can see, everything in the district is a fire hazard, and their ratings are the moderate, high, and extreme. There's nothing not included in this code. There's nothing low. Everything is moderate or higher. Mm-hmm. There are some exceptions, things that are not included in the code, and first thing I should probably say, it's not retroactive. It doesn't apply to anything legally existing right now. It doesn't apply to interior alterations. It doesn't apply to painting, staining, or similar small type exterior work on a house or structure. Things like sheds, as long as they're 10 feet from a habitable structure and less than 120 square feet, that doesn't count. Also, larger utility agricultural buildings, again, if they're separated from an occupiable structure, this code would not apply to them. The code also does not apply to fences more than 8 feet from the structure, but on the flip side, fences within 8 feet now do need to comply with this code, and so need to be a non-combustible type material. Some advantages, there are several. One of the main things is we will be consistent with the state mandate to adopt this code by July 1. Increased protection and property and life from wildfire hazards. It forwards a goal within our comprehensive plan as well. And we're hopefully that it'll create conditions for increased insurability of building structures and property. There are some disadvantages that we should note, and that could be longer review times, additional inspections, additional processing for the new code requirements. I should note that our building team is Safe Built, and that they have client communities that have already implemented this code. So their learning curve, they've already been in the process, their plan review team. Our local team, there will be some education needed, but Safe Built as a whole has been working with this code already. So that's a positive in that regard. We may have to ask homeowners to remove an important or significant tree. That's another disadvantage that comes with this code. I know folks do love their trees. They can be a hazard as well, but there are requirements that could require existing trees and vegetation to be removed if such a development would occur on a property that triggered the code's requirements. There's also the potential for construction costs to increase with this new code, with materials needed for the exteriors, decks, any kind of addition. Special materials come with probably additional costs. So there's the potential that we could see new additions, new structures come in at a higher price tag. However, through all of that, we do find the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So the Fire Protection District, your staff, we do recommend that you adopt the ordinance to adopt the new resiliency code. And this is the sample motion presented. And again, the team is fully here to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll first ask if there's any public comment. And I don't see any. Trustee Eshelman.
So I realize we're required to do most of this, but I'm just curious specifically what our local amendments are, because it sounds like any amendments are going to be above and beyond the minimum requirement. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Trustee Eshelman. Our requirements, we modeled our code after what Larimer County adopted first of the year. So if you look at the structure hardening requirements, that's probably the most significant, I guess, point of conversation. The level 1 structure hardening that was in the model code was basically everything we're already requiring in construction in our valley. Class A roof, non-combustible gutters, those items. The only thing that maybe wasn't was screening of vents, like attic vents, soffit vents. So we felt like that was not a big ask to just include that in everything, and that's why everything moderate or above, there's one level of structure hardening requirements for the entire valley, no matter the fire intensity rating.
Sure. So I'm assuming like hardy siding, stucco, things like that are going to be required.
Yes.
Moving forward. And then, sorry, Class A, is that metal roof or what? Or is it just?
You can get a Class A roof with a shingle roof as well. Metal
the
roofs
treatment.
can be Class A. I mean, and again, it's something that's already required, not only for snow load, but wind load. Again, we already had those requirements in our code.
Mayor and Trustee Eshelman, also to answer your question, I think it's important that the board understand, and this was discussed at the study session on this topic a couple months ago as well. The way that the model code comes down is that it's based on maps that were created by the state, which show, I believe, low, moderate, and high areas in town with stricter requirements the higher up you are in the risk category. The fire district considers the entire town to be out of low and within moderate or high. So I think it's fair to say, and Division Chief Landcamer, maybe you can say whether you think this is true or not. My sense is that the biggest amendment is to say that all of the Estes Valley, all of the town of Estes Park is within moderate or above and not within low.
Sure. Okay.
And Attorney Kramer, I would agree with that statement. When you look at the state map, the modeling they use for the state map is not able to calculate the wildfire intensity hazard as well when there's structures, when it's more densely populated. They're looking at vegetation, not structures. So when you combine the actual structures in there and take a look at it, we use the map from our CWPP, so again, adopted by the town board in 2022. We felt that was the most appropriate map for our community. And again, starting at moderate and above.
Sure. All right, thanks.
Trustee Heigl.
Yep. Okay, I got a few questions.
Sorry, my reflexes.
For transparency, I should say that I volunteer with the fire district, and I believe in wildfire resiliency. I would like to see less things catch on fire. I would also like Estes Park to never have another fire. However, today I'm sitting in the role of advocate for my neighbor taxpayer. And so I have some financial questions and also some questions about the decision by the district to elevate that level. Certainly will have an impact financially on people who will be affected by that decision. So what is the data, or what supported that increase in rating? What supported the increase in rating that would rate a building downtown needing to be hardened just the same as a house at the end of the highest road in Little Valley, which is deep in the forest? Why are we applying forest standards like that to a commercial district?
Really, we're looking at the science that helped develop the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And we know that 90% of homes that burn in a wildfire burn from an ember storm, not from direct flame contact. So it's the ember storm really that we're fighting with the structure hardening, not direct flame contact and heat. And we have all seen how far that ember storm can go, because who thought it would ever come across the Continental Divide with these troublesome fire? So that's really what the crux of the problem is the ember wash from a wildland fire. So if you looked at the state map, you would see it has extreme fire hazard right up to the downtown corridor, and then it goes to low. And just reality says that that's not a true statement. It's a flaw in the modeling, and they acknowledge that. And again, we chose to go stricter than that.
So I would disagree with when we make a decision that has a financial impact, and Director Creccia, who wisely busted out of here, said so people have been being hidden from me behind the speaker all night, Director Creccia. So you said earlier that there may be some financial impacts on construction. And I would suggest that there will be some financial impacts on construction and other issues that come up with this decision that was made. So while I understand what you're saying, I understand that embers start fires and they fly a long distance. Yeah. And I believe we'll be referring to that fire for the next 100 years to say, never let a good tragedy go to waste, because there's got to be a line, though, where we make decisions that are balanced financially with the risk to the community. And people who live in the community should have a decision to make on where they live, how they live, what it costs them to live, what trees they have. I don't think that it's going to be the financial impact that comes back to give us grief on this decision, but it's going to be that old 150-year-old tree that now has to be cut down because it's within a certain distance of a building that would not have been impacted by this had it not been for that decision. So I'm looking for the supporting information that says this was a good decision for the valley financially, because when we look back in 10 years and it's starting to impact people who are building new things, we have to be able to say this is why we did it and confidently say that. The other part of this is that the fire district is asking the town to enforce this. And so that's the second thing that we'll talk about with that agreement of what those cost impacts are. I don't even know if I had a question in there, but I think that it should be on the record that it's a consideration of each trustee, if we approve this at the way it's been presented to us, which we're being asked to tonight, that we're considering that information.
There is some good information on the CPA website, and the CPA has been involved with the town in the rewriting of the development code. And they have some great information on the costs associated with structure hardening. And the lower level change in the structure hardening is not at a significant cost. I did not come prepared to speak that tonight. I did not know it would be a question. And again, I heard you mention it in your statements, but this is not retroactive. This is for new construction. And when you talk about insurability of buildings going forward, and this is a state mandated code, this is not
I understand that.
Chief Landhammer's code, we had no choice but to adopt it. And I want to do it as correctly as possible for the community, to protect the community. So.
But there was a decision made by the district to elevate and to increase the costs down the road.
We had a robust discussion about the hazard ratings. So, but yes, the decision was made moderate and above.
Okay, robust. Yeah. Okay, that's all my questions on this.
Trustee Mears.
So I just want to ask about a couple loopholes. So one of them is if there's a shed that's within 10 feet that currently exists, then that has to go. Is that correct? Okay, so retroactively that can remain.
Correct.
Also, things that are for storage that are within 50 feet of a structure, those are okay to stay as well.
Yeah, again, it's not retroactive. It's talking about new structures that would be built within that.
Okay, great. I
zone.
just wanted to clarify that. And then lastly, so for code compliance going forward, that would basically be, city or town staff that's doing that, correct? And next item, yeah. It's getting late. I'll bring that up on our next item then. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton.
You could just say Kirby and that would be fine too, and cover it all. Can you, or Steve, can you arrow back to the map that shows the level of risks in your presentation? Yeah. Okay, thanks. And you said, John, that Chief Landhammer, that you
can call me John too.
sometimes the titles are just a lot. That previously it was all extreme going up to, mostly extreme going up to downtown, which was low. So this is actually kind of a more phased and appropriate based on what we know our community to be. Okay, I just want to make sure I reiterated that, understand that. I think, of course, it's always a balance that we have to think about the financial impacts and the health and safety impacts. I think the state mandated piece of it is something we just can't ignore. I think that when we think about the relevance of property nearness, that I totally believe in individual property rights. And I also know my neighbor across the street that if that fire mitigation isn't happening to the level that we need, sayonara to my house. Like I don't have the luxury of those big wildfire breaks, and many members of our community don't either. So that brings me to just a comment, not a question, but when I think about what's more expensive, when it comes to new construction, hardening and prevention, and what's more expensive, rebuilding, lack of insurance coverage because we're not insurable based on, our environment and the choices that we've made as a community. I think if we're weighing financial costs, that's a big factor for me. So I think and I really appreciate, we had a study session on this. Obviously, this was, a big department discussion. We have to do this hand in hand. It's great information. I appreciate the thoughtfulness, and I know balance is always in the fire district's approach as well. I've heard the board and staff say that quite a bit. So those are just really my comments, is I think, no matter what, the world is an expensive place. And I think if we're considering what's going to be more expensive, is it the impacts to our new construction, or is it rebuilding or lack of insurability? It feels as though what you're presenting is an attempt at hopefully striking that right balance.
Thank you for those comments. I'll just add to that some of the things we're seeing and people estimating cost impact, every dollar spent on mitigation is worth 6 in recovery. So.
Trustee Lancaster.
Yeah, John, and you may not be able to answer these at all, but couple of questions. One, I just want to mention, I am Master Gardener for CSU for the extension and on the tree team, so I do a lot of going out and looking at people's trees. Lots of questions about pine beetle. But I tell you, every time I go out and discuss it and go to look at any plants, I always turn into a discussion about firewise as well, because you walk around and I can't look at someone's property without saying, well, you know, you got ladder fuels here and you need to take good care of this too. It's not just about the health of the trees, so, and it comes up and people are very interested. They're very open to that when I go out and talk to them. And I've talked to a lot of people this year because of the pine beetle. Insurance, and I know this is a tough one because Colorado is one of the top 4 most expensive homeowners insurance states in the country. And do you know if adoption of a code will impact insurance rates? Have we been doing this long enough? It's kind of like flood insurance. You know, if we adopt floodplains and things like that, we tend to lower the insurance costs and what would be, because we have, as a community, we're dealing with that flood issue. If we're dealing with a fire issue, have you seen that around the country or anywhere where if a community adopts this and says, you know, we are a fire smart community, have you seen the insurance companies cutting any slack? And then a follow-up question to that, you know, regardless of our intent not to be retroactive, are insurance companies using these standards for the purpose of renewal or for rates? And we can say they're not retroactive. I'm not sure my insurance company will say that. Cost us as much to burn down an older home as a new home. So what's the experience been out there? Has it been out there long enough to know? And can you answer any of those?
I would say I can't really answer the first question about this code and the impact that it's had yet. I anticipate it will have an impact. I mean, that's why codes are written, to have that impact long term. It takes a while to actually get there. I would anticipate that insurance is well aware of this code coming, and they will be looking at ways to encourage compliance as well, because it does reduce their risk as well. We hear a lot of comments, a lot of conversations, a lot of people that have been dropped, threatened to drop. Rates went up tremendously, asking what do they need to do. And again, we do home ignition zone assessments, and we're very successful at that. We've done about 75% of the assessments done in the entirety of Larimer County have been done in our fire district. So
Can I follow up, Chris?
if you haven't done that yet, that's my shameless plug.
In your experience, is that making a difference with renewals and with rates if somebody's done that?
Absolutely.
Because I've heard horror stories of people that cut down all the trees and they still get dropped. So, but there are always horror stories out there.
There's always, yeah.
But you have heard that it does make a difference with the insurance companies.
Yes.
Good. No, that's good to hear.
Chris?
I think I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, in that code that there are some signature trees at above 15 inches in diameter that you can, 10? Thank you. That's better yet. That can be saved, so it's not gonna be like you're cutting everything down within X amount of 30 feet or whatever. Is that correct?
Right. The standard recommendation is nothing flammable in that 0 to 5 foot zone. But there is a provision in the code. I'd have to look up where that was, but it's 10-inch tree or greater. You still have to trim it back and try to get that 10-foot separation. Yeah, 502.1.4.
I was ready.
10-inch diameter at 4.5 feet above the ground may be maintained. And by being maintained, it means it needs to still have that separation from the structure, but it could remain if you can manage that.
Which is at least helpful. The other thing is, it's gonna create a greater workload for you and you, I'm assuming, as far as permitting, time costs, all that. Is that, you see permitting costs and inspections going up, and will you be able to meet that in timely manner, because time always counts?
Our plan is to, and I think that's the next item when we talk about the cooperative agreement and the details of that, if that's okay to wait for that.
I was in office for about a week at the recycling center, and a builder pulled up beside me, one of my friends, said, "Those darn new sprinkling, I have to put sprinklers in every building now." And, then there are several other things that have gone along there. And obviously this adds to it. I understand the financial aspect, the insurance aspect. I know where I live. Err on the side of safety. That's my opinion. Trustee Lancaster.
I just throw one thing out. Last year, I did bring up the idea about licensing arborists and the people who are cutting down these trees. There are going to be a lot more of them out there, a lot more threatening buildings, and a lot more people that frankly got a chainsaw for Christmas and decided they're an arborist. And I think that is a profession, just like plumbers or electricians. And at some point, we might want to look at that again, make sure these people that are cutting down trees around their houses know what they're doing.
More business.
Yeah, I
The hospital
appreciate those
way.
comments. We are sensitive to that as well.
Right.
So.
All reports, statements, exhibits, and written communications presented will be accepted as part of the record. The public hearing's closed. You can have further discussion if you want after I get a motion.
I move for the approval of ordinance 12-26.
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton moved to approve this item 1226. Trustee Lancaster seconded. Is there additional discussion? In that case, we'll go to a vote. And there we go. We'll move on from this to the second part, 8226, Cooperative Agreement for the Administration and Enforcement of the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. And Steve, I think you're still with us.
Yes, Mayor, still here. Mayor, trustees, this is part 2 of the code item, and so this is the cooperative agreement. And so what we have, agreement between the town fire protection district, as the code includes both typical type building code elements along with fire code elements. So what the legal counsel did was kind of separate the tasks to those organizations to build on their strengths. So the Building Safety Division for the town will administer all the building code type elements, all the structure hardening, the building permits review. That's what we do. Those will be our responsibilities. The Fire Protection District, they'll take on a defensible space. As Division Chief Landcamer said, the zones around the house, they'll be the ones reviewing that part of the plan. They'll be the ones going out to the site to inspect the vegetation and the trees. So again, building on the strengths of both our teams, that hopefully we will eliminate duplicative efforts. So we will each go to our strengths and then ensure that consistent application of this new code as we move forward. And so with that, again, this is a high-level overview of the agreement. Hopefully there will be discussion afterwards where the different parties can answer any questions that the board may have. But our recommendation is to approve this cooperative agreement. And here are the sample motions.
Any public comment? Any questions from the board or comments? Trustee Igo.
So we don't have any idea what the cost is going to be. There's no way to forecast what you anticipate. You're asking us to make a decision without knowing what we're spending.
Mayor, trustees, part of the answer is yes, this is a brand new code. We do not know how it will affect us. For a new addition, that would require a building permit. Safe Built, that is what they do. They would review the permit. They have the staff to do that. What the new code would require would be a new material, potentially. Let's say the new siding on there. They would know to look for that. So potentially, there is not much additional time that the Safe Built plan reviewer would need.
Okay.
Because he or she is already looking at the plan for that material. They will just know to make sure, does it meet the new fire code? So there could be some increases but they would hopefully decrease as the staff are local staff, as well as the state-built staff overall, as we get used to the new code. But we're already looking at the plans. We're already going to inspect the site. So hopefully if there is any increase, it's very minimal.
Well, I wasn't successful in getting you to commit to a small number, but in my read of the agreement, it looks like the town's potential exposure financially is not that big. And so that feels better, but you're good at not answering that specifically. We're not hiring a couple people and, okay, I don't hear that at all.
Mayor, Trustee Agel, I would go as far as to say that we're even more shielded from the potential downside because of our agreement with Safe Built. The risk of that extra cost really falls on them because of the way our agreement is structured. Costs on our building permit time that we pay, we end up covering. Safe Built may come back at the next renewal and say, hey, this is costing us X amount of dollars. We'd like an increase in the rates to compensate for that. But at least at that point, we would have actual hard numbers. So not only is the exposure to the town already minimal, it's further minimized by our agreement with Safe Built and the way they're able to manage their operation across the state and across the country and really spread that work.
Okay, thank you for reassuring us on that.
Trustee Eshel.
Yeah, real quickly for the Estes Valley Fire, it's not going to affect how I vote, but, you know, bandwidth wise, you guys prepared to handle that, and then education wise for all the people doing the work ahead of time so that they're not surprised?
So I'll speak to this one. So for the last 3 years, we've been doing the home assessments and providing that education to our community and our homeowners for the outside zones and the defensible space around a structure. We have gotten into some of the commercial properties as well that have requested those assessments. I have also been doing them for some of our new construction projects, as it is part of our development code that a high-risk fire zone would require that kind of an assessment. So I've already been doing some of these inspections for new construction. We're doing them for the community. We're providing that education. Everything that's in this code, as far as the exterior and those zones go, is the language that we have been speaking for the last 3 years. That being said, we've provided quite a bit of education. As far as the capacity for the fire department, we are in process of hiring another inspector so that I will have more time to dedicate to some of these inspections and these reviews as well. And again, with Safe Built, they've been great to work with, and we have been working together on this project and developing those relationships to continue to work cohesively together.
Okay. Trustee Eckel.
Captain Sutherland, I want to ask you, just going to compliment you on elaborating to the education that you've been doing over the last several years. That's very helpful to know that it's not going to be a new thing that pops out and surprises people, but I think that communication is everything. So knowing that that's already been in process is beneficial. And a lot of times when maybe you think somebody knows something and maybe they don't, but we say it in a meeting like this, and then the public that we represent gets to share that information. And I think it's good to show appreciation and tell people that the process is already underway, and with some confidence that this is coming, they can be supportive as well.
I will also note that we also recently had a meeting with the Chamber and the Contractors Alliance to provide some extra information about this code and what is coming. Although the construction that I have seen, as far as new construction goes, a lot of them are already doing a majority of this. So not a lot of this is going to be new, but the code does allow for some flexibility as far as the materials go. So it's not just one, thing that everybody has to buy. There is still some flexibility, and this code is still up for interpretation within that flexibility. So, yeah.
I'd be happy to take a motion.
Mayor, I would move that, move for the approval of Resolution 8226, and that's a cooperative agreement for the administration and enforcement of the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code.
I'll second.
Trustee Eigel moved to approve 8226. Trustee Eshelman seconded, and we'll vote. All right, the fire folk can go take a nap. And thanks, Steve, for hanging on through it. Okay, we're going to move, I'm going to have a motion to extend past 10. I don't think we're going to make it.
Mayor, I move to extend the meeting past 10 p.m.
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton moved to extend the meeting past 10. Trustee Eshelman seconded. Let's vote. Well, if Marie was here, there'd be another red, but interview committee for the Estes Park Housing Authority Board of Commissioners and Town Clerk Williamson. Burning the midnight oil, or the 10 o'clock oil.
Yes, the 10 o'clock oil. Everything's kind of in your memo, as you know, as you are probably aware. You have received 3 resignations from the Housing Authority from Julie Daly, Root Miller, and Marty Miranda. I did also note earlier during the study session, the terms are in the memo, but you do have one term that would expire in April of next year, and then again in April of 2028, and a third one in April of 2029. We're bringing this forward tonight because there seemed to be a sense of urgency with a 7-member board losing 3 members and the possibility of them not being able to have a quorum. So we were bringing this forward with the understanding that they might be able to hold, or you all might be able to hold interviews of those interested once an interview committee was established. I will note that I did look in our system. We do already have 2 applications received, so that's encouraging. But we also know that this could be an iterative process as getting people to come out and volunteer for these types of boards. We've had some difficulties in the past, and so we likely would be holding multiple interview processes as we go. I also know that there's some other communication or thoughts maybe perhaps on this, but we are looking for 2 trustees to be on that interview committee. Generally, the liaison, Trustee Lancaster, would be appointed, and then 1 additional member of the board is what we're looking for. Thank you.
And in this particular action item, would we, and Town Attorney Kramer, could this board at this point, for a safety net, assign one of the board members from this board to be a voting member on the EPHA board without further ado, or would that have to be a separate announced action item on a future agenda?
That's a good question, Mayor. I think that it would be acceptable under the statute for a board member to be appointed to the Housing Authority Board. This was advertised to the public as interview committee, so the question is whether it falls within the scope of that, and I'd say it's arguable either way, wherever the board comes down on that.
Well, in the meantime, the first purpose to get the interview committee, you're on that, and we need another board member to do that. Just 1, right, is what we... Trustee Eigel volunteered.
No, I don't volunteer as well.
Oh, well, you guys want to duke it out? Or
Not really. Maybe we should split.
No.
You go to the first half of the meetings. Anyway, are you withdrawing at this point?
I don't care. It's up to you, Mayor.
Oh, it's up to the board. I think we need to first public comment. Any public comment on this? They're all leaping up. Lots of public comment. So actually, what I would do is take a motion, and so whoever wants to make a motion.
Since trustee Geigel said I would volunteer first, I'll make the motion to say that.
You want to stick me in there too, so we get?
Yeah, I can make it. I move to approve the appointment of trustees Lancaster and Eigel to the Estes Park Housing Authority Board of Commissioners
I
interview
thought you were
committee.
automatic, but,
I still have to,
No,
we
yeah.
still have to.
okay. All right, so
That's
those
just a
two.
tradition.
All right, I'll second that. So Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton moved,
Yeah.
trustee Eshelman. Okay, well, Mayor Pro Tem Hazelton moved to approve trustee Lancaster and trustee Eigel as the interview committee from this board, and seconded by me. Okay, let's vote. Okay, Frank and Mark are on it.
Can we get some direction on whether we want to go ahead with the interviews, or do we want to hold off till after the, after we have the study session and do that? I mean, I'm fine either way. We could always, at the last minute, if we run into a quorum problem, if we lose one person, come back and do it, but.
Well, we could, but it's 2 weeks in between board meetings unless you have a special meeting.
Yeah,
There's
3 weeks this time. Well, I mean, I don't anticipate a fourth person leaving, but I guess
Well.
I just want some direction for us. Do we want to proceed with this, or
So the
should we put
inter-
it on hold?
The interviews would
Perhaps
not
we could assign a
be,
contingency, that
Yeah.
one of our board members will be stand ready in case they lose their quorum.
as clarity, we would not be holding interviews anytime earlier than the week of July 13th. So if that helps you make a decision, because this advertisement is open until then, so we wouldn't even be taking any action until after that, when it closes on July 13th. So if that helps you, the quorum issue is more if somebody is sick or not available to attend the meeting is more of what I was thinking, more than somebody dropping out and leaving.
Well, in that case, I'd make a motion to assign a contingent town board member to create a quorum in case.
There was something the attorney said earlier about that. It just has to be a majority of the people present, right? We don't have a number quorum.
You know, trustee
No, you gotta
Lancaster,
have 4.
No, not on this.
looking at the statute, it looked to me like they might have a good rationale for establishing a quorum even in that circumstance, but I haven't discussed it with them. The housing authority is gonna be the ultimate decision maker on whether they have a sufficient quorum. That was just me glancing at a statute.
I recall when we were discussing this earlier at the study session, not this specific piece, but that in regard to actual, removal of people from the board, is it something that can unilaterally be done by the mayor to assign a town board member to that EPHA board if necessary without board action?
I believe not, Mayor. We have an ordinance on appointment of housing authority board members, and I can look it up, but I believe that ordinance says that it's an appointment of the board.
Yeah, even though I think it says that the mayor can remove people from the board.
The
It's
statute
interesting.
allows,
I guess you
right.
can fire but not hire.
The statute allows for removal by the mayor after a certain process.
Right,
I don't believe we have any ordinances on that.
okay. All right, well, in that case, I guess we wait and see what comes up.
I'm all about being proactive, but I think we have to go by what we have down right now, which is that, this is how we would appoint. And I think, especially since we have community members already submitting applications, and for the sake of, we're talking about transparency, I think if we were to make some change to how we're gonna go through this process, I think it would be better if we did that with adequate notice. So I say we move forward until we have the board discussion otherwise.
Trustee Eigel, or no, Eshelman.
I was actually gonna say I feel like having the board discussion prior to those interviews, but it depends on how quickly we can get it back into the study session time. If they're advertised until July 13th, you said. So that was just my comment.
Trustee Eigel.
A couple things. So we are the town board. We'll make the decisions based on, in the community's best interest. We're elected to make the tough decisions and all these things. So we do have an advertisement that's out there, and we have said until the 13th. And this is the first time that we've gotten together to talk about after the study set, the joint study session. So this is the first opportunity we've had to have a conversation about how that meeting went. So I have a sense that invitation to apply for this board may have been premature to anything that would have happened at this meeting. And while I'm sorry that may have happened already, do we have a legal obligation? Do we have any obligation to the community to now follow this process? Or can we have a study session discussion in full transparency on live streamed computers and recorded for all posterity? Can we not have that transparent conversation before we take the time of community members to interview them for a board that they may not be appointed to?
Yes, Trustee Igo, there's absolutely board discretion on the timing of the process, whether the process should be changed. My understanding is that Town Clerk Williamson moved forward with the process on the basis of an existing policy.
Totally agree with I totally agree with that.
But it's up to the board to divert from that.
Right, well, we have a set of circumstances now that we're in. I'm just trying to figure out the legal obligations and what's most transparent to the community.
I would say there's no legal obligation to carry forward with any particular process. If there's a different process desired, then that's something that we can discuss, and whatever formal action the board needs to take, we can figure that out once we know what the board wants to do.
Sure.
But there's no obligation to carry forward with the process.
Board meeting is the 14th. July 14th is the next board meeting.
And potentially study session to figure out what.
Right,
you know,
and
which
if we are
direction.
able to get that study session in and we discuss, who knows, even the potential of assigning 3 town board members, yeah, that's a day after the interviews are scheduled.
Right, and so I'm not sure what the protocol will be, but the advisors are here to
Oh, that's
say,
the cutoff.
how can we move
Oh, okay.
forward without having community and staff and board members invest time in a process that we have not decided yet if we're going to stick with? Is it reasonable to have a study session to talk about the structure of the housing authority moving forward before we go through the interview process?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure what the logistics are, but I would like guidance on that.
So if there's a desire, I would suggest if the desire is to have that discussion before we move forward with the process, that staff pull that application and invitation to apply down, contact the 2 existing folks, let them know, hey, we're in a pause mode. The board wants to talk about this. We will get back to you once that conversation has happened. The board decides to reopen it, we'll reopen it at that time, let them know that their application has been received. If the board does not want to reopen it, we'll contact those 2 individuals. I think if the board does not want to continue to receive applications, staff needs that direction tonight so we can pull that off and not continue to give people the impression that that's going to move forward. I will note also that we'll either have a very long study session on the 14th. We have the water rate study at 40 minutes, PD facility financing at 30 minutes, draft code amendment follow-up for requirements for neighborhood meetings at 30 minutes, and then the housing definitions and density bonuses at an hour. So I would suggest that we do this as a report and discussion item on the 14th, just to get it in front of the board quickly without extending an already long study session.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I don't understand the reason to change the whole process of interviewing. We've got 3 people to find, and it's going to take a while to do that. I don't get the idea of why we would have to change any of that myself. I would just proceed with what we've got, move it along as expeditiously as possible. It's not up to us to determine quorum issues for the housing authority, and they can deal with that themselves.
It is up to us to provide oversight. While I've made comments in writing and at this board that I generally agree with most of the decisions on the housing authority with the Fall River Village decisions. I'm fine with them using office space. I'm fine with Fitch Hatchery, the progress that they've made with that. Most of the decisions that they've made in the 2 years I've been on this board, I'm comfortable with, but I'm not satisfied with some of the process and some of the way things move along, some of the communication, some of the preparation of materials for board meetings. I think there are issues that need to be addressed. Maybe the two candidates who have applied thus far, maybe those are the only two we'll get. I don't know if we'll scare them away with this process, but I feel that there has to be some improvement in the process with the Housing Authority. Still, I agree with most of their housing decisions, so I'll restate that again. Trustee Landcat.
I think this could be concurrent processes. We could go ahead and advertise, get them ready to go, do interviews. The real issue is when we make the appointments. We're not going to make the appointments on the 14th. If it closes on the 13th and we have a meeting that night, I can guarantee you Mark and I won't have all the interviews done and a recommendation by Tuesday night. Okay, I won't. I'm not that quick. We couldn't even schedule the interviews that fast. So we're looking at the next meeting anyway to make the appointments, and then we'd be ready to go. And no one's guaranteed to get on a board just because they applied. A lot of people apply and don't get on. So there's no harm or no foul for us to go ahead with the process, move ahead, and then make that decision of whether we move forward from there and appoint people or we do something different. But at least we'll be ready to go and we won't have a delay of, another month at least. If we wait until that, and get something out and then advertise and then schedule meetings, we're probably the end of August before we make an appointment. So we could do it concurrently and just don't make the appointments until we're ready.
Other comments? We've had significant changes with some of the key boards and some of the more controversial organizations. Think of Visit Estes Park last year. I think they're in a much more stable place now as a result of some of the dramatic changes that occurred. Look at the tab. We took a very different approach on the Transportation Advisory Board when there was some great unevenness that was transpiring there. While housing authorities are always going to be contentious in every city, and certainly in ours, it feels to me like we're in that same type of situation here where we have to give some attention to it. Anyway, I think we can move on. We made our decision on item. We'll move on to the final report and discussion item, the BEAD Risk Report and Documentation. A cast of 4, Director Bergston, Superintendent Lockhart, Manager Steiner, Manager Smith.
Thank you. Manager Smith is not with us.
Ruben,
Oh,
can you turn
okay.
your mic on?
Thank you. Manager Smith is not with us tonight. And we are going to get this started, and Sky Steiner will present. Let's see. I'm going to hand it over to Sky.
Thank you, Ruben. Hello and good evening, everyone.
Hey.
My name is Sky Steiner. I am the Broadband Operations Manager for the Power and Communications Division. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to this today and the opportunity to speak to you all.
We saved the best for last.
Thank you, yeah. Okay, so my goal here tonight is to help frame the decision clearly. I want to be able to explain the trade-offs, make sure the board has the information needed to inspire some questions, as well as make the best decision for the community. So to get started, I want to talk a little bit about Trailblazer Broadband's origin. And that kind of started in 2019 when the broadband build-out took off in a way. And at that time, I was just a contracted technician drilling holes in people's homes. And even then, I knew the goal, right? The goal was to provide high-speed, reliable internet to all of power and communication customers. And in 2023, we paused our build out for a few different reasons. One being lack of funding, another having a 2-month long backlog of installations. For example, if someone were to sign up in May for Trailblazer Broadband, it wouldn't be until July until they were actually installed. So we focused a lot of our in-house resources in that direction. Around that time, we started applying for a grant opportunity called BEAD. And BEAD was designed to help providers reach rural and high-cost locations. On the surface, that made it look like a great opportunity for Trailblazer. The Power and Communications Division has successfully managed federal and state grants before, and like I said before, it looked like a great opportunity to bring some of this outside resource and funding into our community. And as a team, we approached it with that mindset. However, as the final agreement became a little bit more clear, and after legal review by Greg White, and discussions with the state, the risk profile became materially different from what we had experienced with previous grants. And at this time, I myself was extremely disappointed. We had spent years working on this, a ton of resources, a lot of projected financials, a lot of excitement as well, getting to a point where we can get closer to finishing the build out. The concern isn't that BEAD has paperwork, right? All grants have paperwork. All grants have hoops to jump through. No one's given out money for no effort in return. The concern that this agreement appears to be much longer and more complex set of obligations for the town. Those include reimbursement exposure, long-term compliance requirements, possible clawback of funds, and administrative obligations that continue well beyond the construction period. So the question to the board is not just, do we want grant money? The real question is, does this particular grant, under these set of circumstances, help the town move forward responsibly, or does it create a level of risk disproportionate to the benefits? Our team identified that we were on a crossroads of the trail that we were blazing. Thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Had to get that in there.
One was the BEAD path, right? Take the grant, and that brings the possibility of outside funding, right? That's not to be taken lightly. We definitely considered that. But the other path is the staff recommended plan. This path takes money already reserved for the BEAD match and uses it directly for locally controlled construction. In practical terms, this means that we're not waiting on reimbursement. We're not building only where the grant allows us to build. We're not taking on a compliant structure that continues long after the construction is complete, and we're eliminating the risk of clawback. The distinction matters because Trailblazer's next phase is not just about construction. It's about restarting the build-out in a way that strengthens the utility and gives us a better foundation for the phases that still remain. I'm going to keep it pretty short tonight. I only have 4 slides. So my next one is just blank and black, hopefully. Okay, can everyone see it? Okay, let's all think of Trailblazer Broadband like a country, right? And within a country, they're separated into certain states, just like the United States. Those individual states, to us, are classified as cabinets. You can see those on the left: Eagle Cliff, West, Glacier. Each state is a little bit different. Think of Montana and Rhode Island. One state is our smallest state, right? Rhode Island. And another state is vast, large, has tons of mountains. But the similarity between the two is they have an extremely close population, right? And those are kind of described in those cabinet boundary areas as, in column number 3, the TB passes. Those are potential customers in these cabinet boundary areas, in these small states. For example, in the Glacier cabinet, you can see that there's 162 potential customers. And if you go all the way to the bottom, the Taylor customer, or the Taylor cabinet boundary area has about 163. So extremely similar, but if you glance to the left, one costs entirely more than the other, similar to building in Montana versus a higher density, more concentrated area where your building dollars go further, like Rhode Island. I also want to mention that the colors, the orange color are most of the places that are in town limits, right? That's where we want to focus our building at right now. The fourth column is bead location coverage. It's a very small percentage of the actual folks that live in the town, the actual customers that we could achieve. The blue area on the table is the Highway 34 corridor. This is Mall Road and down Highway 34. Some of this area is bead eligible, not all of it, but the staff proposed plan plans to build to all of the orange and the blue. I want to signify the green color because it's a little bit unique. This is downtown Allens Park. This is called Ski Cabinet Boundary Area. This, in terms of construction, has been entirely completed up to the curb, meaning that, in theory, someone in Allens Park, downtown, could sign up for service and be installed as soon as the next few months, if they're allowed to, if these areas are released to those people. We haven't released to them yet because we have the potential for BEAD funding, right? That would cover that last little bit, not the infrastructure it takes to get to them. That is already built. The bottom four are the most expensive ones. These are what BEAD primarily covers. And the entirety of this, it represents what we still have left to build. And if you were to ask me, Sky, what's your plan to build to the most expensive ones, I'd simply answer that by saying, when it makes the most financial sense to build to those remaining ones. And by that I mean, the revenue generated by building to higher concentrated areas and the customers obtained, the revenue will be able to be used to build to these higher, less densely populated areas when Trailblazer is a more sustainable business model. Next slide is a ton of words. I'm not going to go through them all with you in the effort of time, especially as we're nearing 10:30. But what I want to identify here is all of the indicators that we've used to make this decision, right? We've tried to identify all of the pros and cons and a decision matrix in order to be able to make the correct decision. Some things like customer demand, residency was another big one for us. We were able to use electric meter data to be able to understand whether there's primarily a full-time resident living in this cabinet boundary area or primarily second homeowners that are only visiting for a portion of the year. Build efficiency, we've kind of gone over that with the building to these more highly dense populated areas where we have a lot of client leads, customers who want to be signed up, and administrative burden, path to remaining build out, things like that. One thing that's on here that's not on here that I want to mention is that if we do take the BEAD grants, we'd be unable to then procure some financial benefits, as in grants in the future, down the road, right? Another good option of not taking the BEAD grant is that we'll be able to then potentially get funding for these areas while we're building out our more highly populated, dense areas as well. So this is my final slide. And just in conclusion with some of the statistics that you guys had laid out before you. So in conclusion, we don't believe that the benefit of BEAD outweighs the risk. The internal plan gives the town more control to help better our community. It uses funds already reserved for this project to build where customer interests, construction efficiency, and potential revenue are stronger. And to tie this back to me putting holes in people's homes, this decision doesn't change the goal, right? The goal is to still build out all of Trailblazer. What this does is it just changes the path so Trailblazer can move forward with less risk and a stronger foundation. And that's all I have for you guys. Thanks. And at this time, I'd like to welcome any questions you guys have.
Yeah, we don't actually have an action item on this, correct? Side question, is there really a Lockhart Mountain? There really is? Okay. So questions, what do we have? Trustee Eshelman.
I'm just curious with the staff recommended approach. You're adding, what, 700 and some extra customers versus the beads, what, 1,100 or something like that?
Yeah.
With that approach and spending that 1.9 million that you've already got set aside, what do you feel like the revenue generated by Trailblazer, will that be sufficient to then keep funneling money to eventually? Because obviously we want to build out the entire system for those people that aren't in those high density areas. Does that look like that's possible once you pick up those extra 700 some customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the good part about being able to pick up those extra customers and then have that excess revenue coming in is that we can phase our build out into these lower density, high cost areas in a way that makes sense for the town, right? That makes sense for Trailblazer. So we're not overextending, overreaching, taking on a lot of risk and trying to get into these places. Now we're able to build to where it makes sense to build right now, generate some revenue, save up some money, and then be able to go to these areas that are a little less populated.
First, thanks for, you should present more for your department. You did a good job. And you should always be last because you're still fresh at this hour and slightly funny.
Slightly funny.
So I appreciate your, that you're upbeat here this evening. Because this is important. And several questions that you don't have to answer all of them, but I want to make the observations so we can talk about them later. Sure. Why are we having this conversation now? Why don't we talk about this when it was time to get the BEAD grant and to do all the work on BEAD grant? Because you make a great argument not to get the BEAD grant. And it goes back to maybe an assertion I've made that depending on which way you want to go, facts will support any direction. So
yeah,
we could have this conversation a while ago and saved a lot of time with BEAD grant, but I like the way it's going. And I'm not demanding an answer, but I feel like you want to give one.
But I think there was a lot of early value, but well.
Trustee Eigel, I'd like to thank you for the question. It's definitely a valid question. So, and I'll try to explain with an analogy of the straw that broke the camel's back, right? As we're working on the BEAD grant, we're weighing the pros and the cons, right? We identified that this is a good fit, right? This is a way that we can build out a lot of this infrastructure. And the straws kept piling up, right? There's only broadband serviceable locations that we're able to build to. For instance, if we're building down Highway 34, someone may be signed up and installed with the BEAD grant, and their neighbor, for whatever reason, these broadband serviceable locations I've identified to be a little bit strange at times, could not qualify for the BEAD grant. So one of those straws that was on the camel's back was things like this. Now, when it came to review from a legal standpoint and a risk compliance standpoint, it was more of a cinder block that broke the camel's back. We had all of these things that we were building up to, and we had been awarded the BEAD grant. We thought it was an amazing thing, but then we realized that we may be overextending and there may be a little bit more risk involved.
So I appreciate that you did elaborate on that, because it's a question we have to ask is which set of facts we're hearing. Is there an obligation for you to go a certain distance in the district or in your service area? Do you have an obligation to provide internet deep into Allens Park? Or is it merely the risk of somebody else picking up that account through Starlink or some other service? Or is there downside to this? To keeping it in-house?
I don't see it as a downside. It's more of an objective and a goal that we have to be able to provide to all of our power and communication customers.
Okay. Good answers. I'm going to save the rest of them for another day, just maybe run into you and ask you, because this is interesting, important to the community, and I would support the direction that you're suggesting we go.
Mayor, Trustee Eigel, just to add a little bit of, we may not have a legal obligation to build out to our full service area. That was not a part of the ballot initiative that moved this forward. I do think that there is a moral drive among staff to, yes, we want to get out to our entire service area. We also want to do so without compromising the enterprise and without compromising our existing customers. So being able to, as Sky mentioned, being able to do that in a way that makes sense only from our perspective instead of being forced to do certain decisions we may not otherwise make to pursue quote unquote free money is what pushing this conversation.
I just had a question. These cost per customer numbers are pretty amazing.
They really are, truly.
Just to put in perspective, what was the cost like in the denser main part of town?
Oh, that's a great question. And
Just to put it in perspective.
Sure, and I don't know if it's fair to have at the app to look at some of the averages, but if maybe I could go back without crashing this. Yeah, so like the really high ones are up to $23,000 per customer, right? That's where it gets to the point where it's outrageous. Now, we don't normally see that into our areas like Prospect Estates, Grand Estates, places like that. They're much lower, sometimes even as low as in the $1,000 ranges.
That's what I was wondering.
Okay, thanks.
So I hear two separate justifications. One is a business justification, really, and that seems pretty clear to me as to what that is and why. And I know it's hard to turn down money if it's there, but it still might be the right decision just from a business standpoint. What I don't fully understand is the risk elements of this, that it seems like, having to reimburse something is a common risk element in any grant. And if there are some unique risks here that aren't present in most grants, I'm kind of curious what those are.
Trustee Brown, I am so glad you asked that question, because Greg White has been waiting patiently to answer it all night.
I wondered if I had to speak tonight. It's only
Yes.
been about
Well, you came
3.5
all the way up
hours,
here.
so
Yeah.
I'll be as brief as possible. The BEAD grant was awarded and the documents came in. I reviewed those documents. I would say, in my opinion, it's the worst document I've ever seen in the 50 years I've represented the town of Estes Park. This was a document the federal government, for whatever reason, put in such things as liquidated damages, removal of territory, ability to stop work permits without cause, you name it. This was added to the normal grant agreement that we'd never seen before. I immediately was asked to produce a memo, which I did to staff, that we got a conference call with the state of Colorado, not the federal government, the state of Colorado, which they explained to us that some of our concerns they could deal with, some of them they could not. And they agreed in the phone call that these were extraordinarily additions to their normal grant documents. So they did come back with a grant agreement that addressed some of the legal concerns. So we were past that. But in the first draft, they failed to include what was called Exhibit G. Exhibit G was not produced in the first round of discussion. It was produced in the second round of discussion, and Exhibit G is about, I think, 18 pages long. It contains 37 different federal regulations that would be required to administer this grant you have to comply with. Additional requirements that were not normal to most federal grants. And the administrative cost of that, I think the when the department looked at that, the broadband looked at that, they were unwilling to accept that risk. There's, it also has an Exhibit F, which states that the federal grant provisions, the additional provisions, shall control. In other words, all the federal grant provisions control all other provisions, parts of the provisions of the agreement. And I think the other thing that happened was there's no guarantee beyond 2 years. They didn't change that. This is a 4-year project with a 2-year guarantee. And they refused to correct that. So that was one of the things that the state could not convince the federal government to deal with. So basically, I think after reviewing that with the staff, and we spent a lot of time reviewing that, that they decided that that's the risk of having to comply with all these different regulations, and they go on for years. So you'd be filing reports, et cetera, and hopefully nothing would occur, but if you're under default, then there's a clawback provision to claw back the grant that's given to you if you violate any of these federal positions. So it's a larger step than most of the grants that you've
Well,
accrued.
clawbacks are pretty common, but the problem is the extent of the compliance.
Yeah, extent of the compliance, yes.
So the clawback is way more meaningful if there's more compliance than
yeah.
there is if there's less.
So,
thank you.
I had a bunch of comments, but after Greg, that's done.
That was my cinder block for the straw analogy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you.
of course.
I think that's enough discussion on that, and this